Chapter 1105. Actually, compared to Mr. Chong, Link had more reason to shout, "What the hell is going on?" After all, he had the upper hand and was about to take down Xiao Tan. However, with the arrival of the 5 fiends from the Trash Alliance, the situation of the battle suddenly reversed. It all happened in the blink of an eye. After Uncle Worthless answered, he took a horse stance and raised both of his arms. He did a standard action of shouldering a vat, and at the same time, he shouted, "Give up and break." Name: self-abandonment, skill card attribute. Active skill, permanent skill type. Martial arts effect: create an indestructible repulsive force field. Cooldown time: 250 minutes. Consumption: 1,000 stamina points, a small chance of recovery. Learning requirement: martial arts mastery. S remark: the dream that once clung to has long been extinguished. Although the heart is empty, there is no room for anything to enter. After the shout, the skill was unleashed. Instantly, a semicircular, shit-colored, translucent force field rose above Uncle Worthless' head. It protected the 5 members of the Trash Alliance, Xiao Tan, and Not a Scaredy Cat. Duong, duong, duong. Then, with a series of loud bangs, more than 20 links fell from the sky and crashed into the force field. The scene was like a flock of pigeons diving into a bulletproof glass, and then they all crashed into the force field, causing blood to flow out of their heads. Where did this guy come from? Link was shocked. Dozens of links flew backward, far away from Uncle Worthless. Okay, the situation is under control. Seeing that the enemy's attack was forced back, Uncle Worthless leisurely lit up a cigarette and muttered. Then, Hong Hu scanned the surroundings and looked at Xiao Tan. "Can you explain the situation to us? The one in the suit is Link, and the muscular man in silver is Infinite." Xiao Tan's answer was straightforward and clear. At this moment, they have destroyed the game space and killed most of the players. He looked at Hong Hu and shrugged. "You should have noticed that your status bar can no longer be displayed, and you can't log off normally. These are the signs that the system has changed." Is this really possible?" Mr. Chong asked. "The game system has made the final emergency measure. It has placed the surviving players in this data link layer," Xiao Tan replied. "However, this was also within Link's calculations. So, they came here through the explosion tunnel and started the massacre." Then, Hong Hu asked again, "What will happen if everyone here is dead?" "According to Infinite, he will permanently occupy all of our bodies in the real world so that he can conduct research on species evolution in the real world," Xiao Tan replied, "and then things like conquering the world will be done along the way." "Ha! Ha ha! Isn't that a bit ridiculous?" Mr. Chong laughed drily. "Ridiculous or not, you can decide for yourself." Xiao Tan's tone was still serious. "But there is one thing that is clear." He scanned the 5 members of the Losers Alliance. "Now, all of you are like me. You have left the main universe, which means that you have left the scenario world. In other words, no matter what, the championship of S2 is no longer yours." "Ah, I've already noticed that," Hong Hu continued with a sigh. "So, when I saw you, I said, we have been tricked by that phone guy again." Tired Dream was still listening, and then he added, "So, it was Feng Bujue who ordered the war demon to send us to Wang Tanji. That is no longer important." Hong Hu shook his head and sighed. "The main point in Brother Wang's words is, we are no longer rivals, so there's no need to worry about the competition anymore. What we need to consider now is..." At this time, King of Shadows turned to look at the links who had regrouped from all directions and continued his teammates' words. How to deal with these anomalies, right? On the other hand, just as the Loser Alliance arrived at the data link layer, the 2 groups in the mirror world met on the Cinnabar Road. Hey, are these 2 monsters in disguise?" When Meng Jingshan, who was running forward, saw the 2 figures, that was his first reaction. Hey, what is that behind them?" That was Phantom Dawn's first reaction when he saw his teammates. At that moment, it was Brother Zen's turn to lead the way. Since the Cinnabar Road behind them was being consumed by the black ball of light, the 4 had to run forward. Other than that, along the way, the monsters that were increasing in strength were still respawning. Of course, this was not a problem for Zue Shengming from Regulation. To stop these four, for even a moment, one would need to be at least a level 2 anomaly. On the other hand, Phantom Dawn and Feng Bujue had a smooth journey. Other than the fact that they had to be wary of each other, the two had basically taken a stroll to reach this point. That's enough, stop running. When the distance between them was about 50 meters, Feng Bujue yelled at the members from regulation. Running is just a waste of energy. Ha! Brother Feng. Meng Jingchan, who was running at the front, did not stop. He replied with a smile. It is not that I do not trust you, but we are still in the middle of a competition. How do I know you are not setting us up? The setting part is already over. Feng Bujue replied in a lazy tone. Now, I'm going to lend you a hand. Who would believe you? At that moment, Phantom Dawn suddenly moved to stand behind Brother Ju and formed a pincer with his teammates. Tell me, what is your plan? Sigh. Feng Bujue gave a long sigh. Since we've reached this point, fine. As he spoke, he reached his hand into his backpack. You want to run? Phantom Dawn thought that Brother Ju was going to use the realm shifting harmonica to escape, so he attacked. His speed was indeed shocking. His kick that broke the sound barrier arrived in the blink of an eye. However, Feng Bujue was prepared for this. Before Phantom Dawn made his move, Brother Ju leaped to the side and stood in the air. You have misunderstood. I am not running. After saying that, Feng Bujue raised the sashimi, pulled the string, and put the swift as the wind into the cartridge. Be careful. When they saw Brother Ju take out the slingshot, Drunken Dream, and the other two on the Cinnabar Road became alert, and their bodies tensed. Regulation's intelligence department had warned them that Feng Bujue's slingshot, as long as the quality of the bullet was high enough, could be used to deal a one-shot. Therefore, Brother Zin and the others did not dare underestimate Brother Ju. Don't worry, I'm aiming at that thing. The next second, Feng Bujue moved the slingshot horizontally with a smile on his face. He aimed at the black ball of light that was about 10 meters away. That thing? That means the thing that has been chasing us is a creature. Drunken Dream and the other two reacted quickly. When Brother Ju finished, they had already read this crucial information. Boom! At the same second, the string moved and the pearl flew. The wind pearl morphed in the air under the influence of the immortal slingshot, and it morphed into a colorless beast as it flew. The beast had the head of a sparrow, the body of a deer, horns, a snake tail, leopard print, and long fur. As the saying goes, it is as swift as the wind, and when it moves, it will fly into the sky. Amidst the howling wind, the black ball of light exploded. A shocking amount of demonic energy leaked out, and it bloomed in the black and white space. Seeing this, Phantom Dawn glared at Feng Bujue and demanded loudly, What have you done? Ha ha! Feng Bujue chuckled. Compensate me with a wind pearl, and I'll show you what it really is. Before Phantom Dawn could ask any more questions, that Brother Ju mentioned had revealed its true form from the black ball of light. It was a creature that made one's hair stand on end just by looking at it. It had a head that was similar to a human's, and its face was pale with hints of green. Its hair was disheveled, and its facial features were hard to distinguish. Below its neck, there was a pair of metal shoulder pads, and behind the shoulder pads was a black silk cloak. Underneath the cloak, there was no clothing or body. Connected to the monster's throat was a chain, and at the bottom of the chain was a large oval mirror. Chapter 1106. What the hell is this? Phantom Dawn glanced at the monster inside the black orb, and his expression shifted. What is this he mirror demon? What's with this exaggerated data intensity? Just like Brother Ju, he could see some things on the data level, so he could give out the person's name directly and grasp their general power level. Holy and demon come from the same source. Before the he mirror, all life is equal. Feng Bujue replied to Phantom Dawn. Then he paused for a second and turned to address the members of regulation. The 5 of you are the best players in Thriller Paradise. I believe, with your power, you should be able to kill this new god before it's too late. Oh, I get it now. Meng Jingshan turned to Brother Ju and said with a bitter smile, Brother Feng, you're planning to borrow someone else's knife to kill your enemy. aren't you? Ha! Feng Bujue replied with a laugh. No, I don't plan to stay here. I have other things to do, so I won't be joining you. Once he said that, everyone knew that he was planning to run. How could they let that happen? Don't even think about it. After Phantom Dawn heard that, he roared and leaped toward Brother Ju. Phantom Dawn knew that if Feng Bujue wanted to escape, he would need the help of the realm-shifting harmonica, and the harmonica needed to be played for 4 to 5 seconds before it would take effect. Phantom Dawn did not plan to give Brother Ju that time. He charged forward with shocking speed and summoned his 2 Shikigami, Beast King and Zombie Queen. Instantly, 2 lithe shadows appeared in the air and formed a circle around Feng Bujue with Phantom Dawn. The Beast Emperor had the body of a lion, with spikes all over its body, wings on its back, and fangs and huge claws. Zombie Queen was like a zombie. Her clothes were as white as snow, and her fingers were like hooks. Humph! Interesting. Seeing Phantom Dawn's attack, Feng Bujue chuckled. In the next second, he raised his hand, and the insane demon poker was already in his hand. Against such a simultaneous attack, frenzy was undoubtedly the best strategy. Brother Dragon and Greedy Wolf had fallen for the same trick during their match against Blades, and they had suffered a great loss. Let's see if you can still smile later. Phantom Dawn roared as he attacked. Right after that, he and his 2 spirit-branded retainers simultaneously hit Brother Ju. Bang, bang, bang. With the sound of 3 consecutive explosions, the frenzy effect of Psycho Poker was activated. After a series of heaven and earth great shift, the powers of Phantom Dawn, the Beast King, and the Zombie Queen were intertwined and directed toward each other. In the end, this round of attacks did not deal any damage to Brother Ju. In fact, Phantom Dawn himself was injured, and the 2 spirit-branded retainers were scattered. So that's how it is. However, facing this result, Feng Bujue's expression shifted slightly, and he said darkly, "Looks like, even though you are an honest man, you are not stupid." Humph! Phantom Dawn scoffed. "I don't need your compliment." Both of them were the type who could see through data. Other than Soul's Eye, there was no secret about other information. If the battle between the other players was like a game of cards, then the battle between Phantom Dawn and Feng Bujue was like a game of Go. Both parties' movements, intentions, and strategies were all laid out before the eyes of the opponent. Furthermore, this was a game of fast chess. It was so fast that any moment of relaxation could be fatal. You know very well that, as long as frenzy is still active, your advantage in numbers is useless. The psychological pressure caused by this special effect will restrict your entire team. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue continued to comment. Therefore, you sacrificed 1/3 of your life points and 2 spirit-branded retainers to force me to use frenzy. He shook his head and spread out his hands. Although the way you used it was simple and crude, and at first glance, it seemed like you took the initiative to step into a trap, but from a strategic perspective, this is using local sacrifices in exchange for an overall advantage, using small losses to solve big problems. At this point, Brother Ju smiled again, and that smile made Phantom Dawn feel uncomfortable. "Ha! I have to admit, in terms of battle intelligence, you are the second best among all the geniuses that I've met." "What did you say?" Hearing that, Phantom Dawn's anger rose to the peak. "Calm down. Don't be instigated by him." Just as Phantom Dawn was about to explode, understanding Death's clear warning came. Hearing that, Phantom Dawn came too. He looked around him, and then he realized that his 4 teammates had leaped up from the cinnabar path. They used their levitating power to surround Feng Bujue in the air. "Brother Feng, the new god that you mentioned does not seem like he has any intention of responding to us." When Meng Jingchan said that, he glanced at the 6-fold mirror demon from the corner of his eyes. At that moment, the mirror demon appeared to have been disconnected. It stood on the cinnabar path, spacing out. Compared to provoking this enemy that had not attacked them, the members from Regulation chose to deal with Brother Ju first. "Huh." Feng Bujue laughed drily. "You'd better think about it carefully. Did he really not respond to any of you?" There was a hidden meaning behind his words, but the members from Regulation did not get it immediately. "Don't listen to his nonsense. Let's kill him first. As the leader, understanding Death's line of thought was different from the other members. He would not dwell too much on other things. Everything was done with the highest priority. That was the responsibility of a leader. You're right. The frenzy has been depleted. We're 5 against 1, so he's definitely going to die. Half a second later, Sashimi, the vice leader, used his usual calm tone to say, "Let's do it." As he finished, the 5 of them moved at the same time. Drunken Life, Phantom Dawn, and Phantom Dawn. Being surrounded by these 5 experts, none of them would be able to survive. Feng Bujue knew that very well. From the beginning, he knew that he would die there. Therefore, not long after he entered the scenario, he had misused the staff of Asclepius's special effect, Immortal Power, on him so that he could welcome death there and then. 1 week ago, during the 3rd round of the Battle of the Four Worlds, the match between Frontline of Hell and Zombie Blade 1. When the scenario was coming to an end at the time, in the stone courtyard of the Temple of Six Harmonies, Xianhong's avatar had been destroyed and blood energy was rushing into the 6-He mirror. Ruo, you looked at Feng Bujue and asked, "Are you going to jump in?" "Huh." Feng Bujue, who was walking toward the 6-He mirror, turned back to smile at Ruo Yu. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and stepped into the mirror like warped blood abyss. Almost as soon as he entered the space, Feng Bujue's ears were filled with mournful wails that reached straight to his soul. A nauseating smell of blood assaulted his nostrils and throat. This feeling of horror and disgust was unbearable. If this was anyone else, they would not have lasted even a second. But Feng Bujue continued to move forward as if nothing had happened, treating all of this as nothing. A moment later, the scenery around him changed. He arrived in a boundless space that was white at the top and black at the bottom. He stood on a cinnabar-colored narrow path. Before him, a strange shadow appeared in the air, the 6-He mirror demon. "You're the first person who has come here voluntarily." The mirror demon spoke, but the voice did not come from its mouth. Instead, it came from the mirror. Its voice was difficult to distinguish between yin and yang. It was half a tenor and half a mezzo-soprano, and its pitch was extremely high. It was the kind of pitch that those who had not received vocal training would not be able to reach. Feng Bujue did not reply. He merely scratched his chin and stared at Mirror Demon like a scientist studying a formula. He was deep in thought. "What's wrong?" Seeing that Gu Jun did not answer, the Mirror Demon continued. "Are you too scared to speak?" "That means..." Feng Bujue continued to ignore him and mumbled to himself, "This guy should be one of the new gods after dusk that has been approved by the system." He licked his lips. That oink sure is not as simple as he seems. Several seconds later, the Mirror Demon finally lost its temper. It summoned a wave of demonic energy and charged at Feng Bujue. "Do you dare to ignore me?" Brother Ju did not mind. He used Jeppo and easily evaded the attack. Currently, it has not fully matured. From the data, it is still not a god, and its level is not fixed yet. As Feng Bujue dodged the attack, he kept thinking, "Overall, it is still weaker than Samon tier. I have the power to kill it. But if I do that, the system will continue to support other new gods." With that in mind, Brother Ju came up with a plan. After he came up with the plan, a sinister smile appeared on his face. "I might as well do something to this quasi-new god that I already know." Time returned to the present. 5 silhouettes gathered around Feng Bujue. The wind from their palms and the shadow of their swords surrounded him tightly. Okay, the last step. Who would have thought that this situation was exactly what Brother Ju wanted? At that moment, he activated body-building spell of spiritual consciousness, modified, and performed the Jeppo with all his might, rushing in the direction of the Lioha Mirror Demon. And the person attacking from that direction was lying drunk and frustrated. "He chose my side." Seeing this, lying drunk thought to himself, "Indeed, in this kind of situation, breaking out in a certain direction with the determination to die is the only way to survive in the face of death. If it was me, I would have done the same. But choosing my side still makes me a little annoyed." It was understandable that he would be annoyed, because according to common sense, breaking out would usually be done at the weakest point of the encirclement. Now that Brother Jew had chosen his side, it hurt Lying Drunk's pride a little. As a top star player, Lying Drunk and Disappointed's thoughts were easy to guess. He wanted to use his strongest attack to prove that his opponent's choice was wrong. In the next second, Lying Drunk mercilessly attacked Feng Bujue. Dragon Fist explode. Brother Jew's reaction was as unexpected as always. Good. He actually praised his opponent and used Move Like Thunder to increase his speed in midair. Lying Drunk was surprised by Feng Bujue's reaction, but he had no intention of going easy. Do you want to die? In a split second, the fist caused a light dragon to soar into the sky, and blood dyed the sky red. But Feng Bujue did not dodge at all. He twisted his body to block the fist, and half of his body was cut off in an instant. This kind of injury, unless there was an S-rank healing skill, there was no way to save him. At this moment, the 5 people from Order all concluded that in 7 or 8 seconds, Feng Bujue would die. But, a burst of crazy laughter made the 5 people's hearts jump to their throats. Why is he laughing? Is he really crazy? Maybe he wants to bluff before he dies, to fight for the benefit of his teammates. No, something's not right. I've been monitoring his heartbeat and pulse the whole time, and it was steady until the moment he was hit. I think there's a problem, too. If he wanted to risk his life, he could at least take one of us down with him. Damn it. If it was anyone else, it wouldn't be so scary, but Feng Bujue, yes, because he was Feng Bujue. Therefore, death could be part of his plan as well. Feng Bujue, who was fatally injured, did not stop. Relying on the sprint before he was hit, he still managed to close in on the Mirror Demon. When the 5 members from Order realized what he was doing, it was already too late to stop him. Their suspicion and anxiety soon turned into actual terror. Feng Bujue, who landed on the Cinnabar path, used his last breath to shout at Phantom Dawn and the rest, "Everyone, I will leave this new god to you." At the same time, he smeared his blood on the surface of the mirror. Instantly, the hexagon mirror turned red. Demonic energy roiled, and an oppressive presence radiated from the Mirror Demon. The heaven, earth, sun, abyss, all of them suddenly reversed at this moment, completely flipping over. Phantom Dawn, what's going on? Understanding death asked Phantom Dawn immediately. The situation is... Phantom Dawn stared at the Mirror Demon, and his expression turned serious. This monster's data has increased again, and its race has been defined by the system as God. Woo, 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 woo. Just as they were talking, suddenly, the sound of a harmonica came from afar. What? When Phantom Dawn heard the sound, his hair stood on end, because he remembered that was the sound of the world traversing harmonica. It was the harmonica that Feng Bujue had played when he left the Court of Truth. At the same second, the other 4 from Order heard the sound of the harmonica as well. They turned toward the sound and saw. Chapter 1107. Feng Bujue. At that moment, the 5 members of the First Order squad shouted out in unison. Even though they had no idea how Brother Jew came back from the dead, they had a feeling that they had fallen into a trap. When their attention was attracted by the change that happened to the Mirror Demon, Feng Bujue had already revived somewhere else. He took out the harmonica as fast as he could and started to play. At this point, it was too late to stop him. The members of Order were distracted for a short few seconds, but it became a crucial turning point for them. About 5 seconds later, the sound of the harmonica stopped, and Feng Bujue's body dissolved into light. So far, his plan in this mirror world could be considered a success. Phantom Dawn and the rest had no idea where Brother Jew had been transported to, but they did not need to think about that anymore. What was done could not be undone. The only thing the 5 of them could do was accept reality and adapt to the situation. Oh well, let's ignore Feng Bujue for now. Understanding Death was the leader of the team. He calmed down immediately and gave the order. Sashimi, Phantom Dawn, listen and take a look. We need to get to the bottom of this monster first. I've been listening for a while, Sashimi replied with a dark face. I've been looking for a while now as well. When Phantom Dawn replied, his face was equally dark. They had this expression partly because Feng Bujua's escape had made them depressed, and partly because, but, Sashimi quickly added, when Feng Bujua's blood touched the monster, I could no longer hear its voice. He paused before adding, now the voice that I hear from a monster is the voice of my own body. Me too. 1 second later, Phantom Dawn added, when I look at the mirror demon, it's like I'm looking into a mirror. All I see is my own data. There was a rare hint of nervousness in his tone. This has never happened before, huh? At this point, the only person who could still laugh was naturally Zendream. In other words, this 6-heat demon mirror has blocked both of your detection abilities. Hey, what's so funny about that? Sashimi narrowed his eyes. This is very bad, Tisk. Phantom Dawn scoffed. In any case, we have been tricked by this Feng fella. From the very beginning, he planned to use his own blood and life to complete the evolution of the 6-heat mirror demon. That is why he committed such a suicidal act. When lying drunk heard that, he thought to himself, so, the reason why he rushed toward me earlier was not because he thought that my side was weaker and could break through, but because he had decided to move toward the mirror demon from the beginning. That's strange. On the other hand, when Phantom Dawn finished, Understanding Death was suddenly reminded of something. He immediately told his teammates, if Feng Bujua's plan is to use the mirror demon to destroy us, why didn't he try his best to cause us as much damage as possible during his suicide? He paused for half a second. When he's completely sacrificing himself, he can do something that can at least cause some damage to the people in front of him, right? Meng Jingchan heard that and laughed. Qinxian, you've obviously misunderstood Brother Feng's intention. Oh, Understanding Death revealed a puzzled expression and replied, what's your intention? Do you still remember what he said at the beginning? Meng Jingchan reminded them. As soon as he said that, the expressions of his 4 teammates changed. I believe, with your power, you should be able to kill this new god in the cradle. Almost at the same time, the same sentence flashed across their minds. He, Understanding Death, said with some thought. He doesn't want the mirror demon to kill us, but wants us to kill the mirror demon? Yes. Meng Jingchan nodded. That can't be right, Sashimi said. If his goal is to destroy the mirror demon, why would he go through so much trouble to make it evolve? Then you'll have to ask him himself. I can't read his mind. Zendream opened his arms and used a casual tone to come up with a few hypotheses. Perhaps he planned for us to fight the monster until both sides were heavily injured, but he felt that the monster was not strong enough, so he came up with this plan. Or perhaps he wanted the monster to be killed when it was fully evolved to achieve some kind of goal. He shrugged and shook his head. But no matter what, I personally feel like Feng Bujua does not care that much about the result of this battle. No matter which side wins, he will accept it, because when he succeeds in this situation and escapes from this space, we will no longer be able to affect the big picture in his mind. The more I think about it, the more annoyed I feel. Phantom Dawn raised both of his hands to scratch the hair on his head. No, I have to punch something to vent my anger. Then, his eyes moved to the mirror demon, who was about 10 meters away. But, half a second later, Phantom Dawn's expression shifted. He took a step forward in midair and moved away from the mirror demon. What's wrong? His teammates did not notice anything, but when they saw Phantom Dawn's reaction, they could not help but be on alert. That was... Phantom Dawn stared at the mirror demon with widened eyes and mumbled. That was your own murderous intent. At that moment, the mirror demon finally spoke. Its voice was a mix of male and female, and the tone was strangely mournful. The voice came from a mirror, and it sounded distant and close at the same time. Just listening to it speak was enough to make one shiver. Then it chuckled. Is it that interesting to be scared away by your own murderous intent? You asterisk shoal. Phantom Dawn was still angry, and being mocked by the mirror demon only added fuel to the fire. Watch how I smash you into glass shards. Wait. Just as 1. 6 was about to charge forward again, Brother Zen stepped in front of him to stop him. After Meng Jingchan stopped Phantom Dawn, he turned to the Mirror Demon with a big smile. "Excuse me, Brother Mirror. We have no grievances with you in the past, nor do we have any enmity with you today. There is no reason for us to fight to the death." He only said half a sentence, and his teammates understood his intention. Obviously, before Brother Zen made his move, he wanted to use diplomacy to solve this problem. "How about we make a deal?" Meng Jingchan continued. "You can send us out of this space or point us out a way out, and then we will go our separate ways." To everyone's surprise, the Mirror Demon did not seem like an unreasonable demon. After hearing that, he really started to consider Brother Zen's suggestion. However, just when the members of Order thought that this battle could be avoided, an uninvited guest barged in and destroyed their last hope. At that moment, a roar tore through space and time. A lithe figure appeared out of thin air. Azura, who flew out from the data gap, guffawed. "I thought I would never be able to escape. Finally, I managed to break through." Coincidentally, he appeared right in front of the Mirror Devil. As he spoke, he dove towards the Mirror Devil at an oblique angle. "What the F***CK? What the hell is that?" Think about it. Azura was in a war with an anomaly. He actively entered the data layer and rampaged through it for a long time. And when he finally regained his physical body, something that looked nothing like a human and nothing like a ghost suddenly appeared before him. It had a scary appearance and was filled with demonic energy. Then, what would his first reaction be? Half a second later, Azura let out a panicked cry. In the blink of an eye, he felt a rapidly rising hostility from the monster in front of him, and that hostility instantly turned into killing intent. It was only after the incident that Azura realized that the hostility he felt at that time actually came from himself. The thought that was reflected by the mirror had, in turn, stimulated his own body. Under the effect of this interaction, the murderous intent was quickly born. Of course, Azura didn't know about this at this moment, so his reaction was very simple. "You ugly monster! You want to ambush me? Who's afraid of you?" He raised his fist to punch, and in his fear he used his Grade S skill. "Taste my Azura Phoenix Fist." Chapter 1108. Azura's intervention completely destroyed the possibility of peace talks between Order and Mirror Fiend. Even though Mirror Fiend had no intention of letting the people in front of him leave, a verbal negotiation would more or less allow the players to get some information. Unfortunately, with the release of a Grade S skill, that assumption no longer existed. Name: Azura Phoenix Tyrant Fist. Modified skill card type. Active skill, permanent skill type. Fighting effect: convert 1 stamina points into punching energy, dealing huge damage to the enemy. Cooldown: 1 hour. Consumption: 99% of current stamina points. Learning requirement: Fighting Mastery S. Remarks: an ultimate fist technique created by a monk from another world and improved by player Azura. The damage calculation formula is user's basic attack power * current stamina points coefficient plus skill attack power * all related attributes multiplier. From the description of the skill, there is actually a modified behind the skill that Azura used, but he did not say that word when he reported the name of the skill, because he felt that it was cooler to call it that. Of course, in reality, the name of the skill should be Azura Phoenix Tyrant Fist, modified. Similar to Phone Bujua's body enhancement spell. Modified. This skill could be changed and upgraded as the player continued to use and improve. Similar examples included the former Zombie Blade Victor's 10,000 Waves of Surging Clouds, Li Ruyu's Bipolar Murder, and so on. The original version of Azura Tyrannical Phoenix Fist was actually just a B-rank skill. Although it was very powerful, it had 2 very obvious weaknesses. First, before the player used the skill, they had to use a pre-skill to accumulate a few air bullets and maintain the state of air explosion before they could use the Phoenix Tyrant Fist. This kind of preparation was not only tedious, but it was also easy for the enemy to predict the intention before the attack. Under the premise that there was a recording of the match, this skill would be exposed once it was used. Next time, The enemy would know what you were going to do once you started to use air explosion. Second, the original Phoenix Tyrant Fist consumed 100% stamina points, which meant, after the player used this skill, they would immediately suffer from 0 stamina points. Combined with the first flaw, if the enemy saw through the intention of your attack and decided to play hard to get, the result would undoubtedly be death. In summary, the characteristics of this move were either you die or I die. If one attack fails, then die. Only a special player like Azura would learn such a skill. Because he was originally the secret weapon of the God's Workshop, there was very little footage of him. In the few times he appeared, his performance was very conservative, and it was obvious that he was hiding his strength. Azura had learned this skill so that he could catch people like Feng Bujue or Phantom Dawn by surprise during the semifinals or finals, but he had not expected to use it on the Mirror Demon. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the ultimate move arrived. The moment the punch landed, the entire space seemed to tremble, and all the colors in the surroundings turned black and white. The modified Phoenix Tyrant Fist did not change in power, and it did not require any preparation. After using it, the user would retain some stamina points. That way, he would not fall to the ground after using the skill. Humph. Serves you right. 1 second later, Azura's body flashed, and he appeared behind the Mirror Demon. As for the Mirror Demon behind him, it had already been covered by the light dust from the explosion of energy. According to Azura's assumption, after taking a punch from him at full strength, the monster would definitely be smashed to pieces. It was not impossible for it to be reduced to ashes. However, the reality was PFFF. Only a second later, Azura's expression suddenly changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What? He clutched his chest in shock and said in disbelief, "Why? You should be thankful." In the next second, the highly recognizable voice of the Mirror Demon sounded from behind Azura. "If my body was as weak as yours, then you would be a dead man by now." Hearing that, Azura turned his head stiffly and looked at the Mirror Demon behind him. When the dust settled, the new god was floating in the air and scathed. There was not even a crack on the surface of the Mirror Demon. However, in the mirror, there was a human face with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth and a horrified expression. "Ah, I say, Brother Mirror." 2 seconds later, Meng Jingchan's voice was heard again. "This person has nothing to do with us. What we were talking about just now, cut the crap." This time, the Mirror Demon interrupted Brother Zen loudly. "Do you think I'm a fool? You pretended to make peace with me, and when I let down my guard, you let your allies in the dark launch a sneak attack. Humph! Even a 3-year-old child can see through this trick, and you still want to quibble? It seems that this matter is not clear." Meng Jingchan muttered helplessly and looked back at his teammates with a questioning gaze. "Then, there's nothing more to say." After all, Phantom Dawn did not expect to solve this problem through diplomacy. Since the trial at the Court of Truth, he had been suppressing his anger, and it was time for him to explode. "I don't care what kind of god you are." He turned to glare at the Mirror Demon and roared. "Isn't it just a god? You don't agree? Let's do it." At the same time, in the Kingdom of the Dead, in front of King City, there was a square made of white bones. Since the day it was completed, a statue of the King of the Abyss had been erected in the middle of the plaza. Now, the statue was gone, and in its place was a towering demonic door. Yo, this is Guliang. This door has been built. Hey, it's time for the two of us to return." Before the door, a black man with 4 arms and a man with purple skin, gills on his neck, and 4 eyes, but no nose were rapping to Huajian. These 2 men were dressed like rappers, wide-sleeve shirts, short pants, sneakers, and all sorts of exaggerated accessories. They were Sam Montier's direct subordinates. One of them was called Upside Down, and the other was Upside Down. As for their characteristics, they did not like to speak properly. "Oh my God!" Huajian held his forehead and shook his head. Rolling his eyes, he said, "Please leave. Thank you so much." For a long time, Huajian had been putting up with the lousy rapping of the 2 in front of him. It was so bad that his head was about to explode. Compared to the other members of the underworld frontline, and Yueqing's mission this time was the safest, but also the most cumbersome. She didn't have to face any powerful and hostile NPCs, but she had to take care of a lot of miscellaneous things. First, she had to meet up with Upside Down and Upside Down in front of the royal city to investigate the movements of Brother Zune and the others. After the monsters entered the city, she had to continue waiting outside the city to rescue Fu Ling. If Fu Ling was injured in the battle with Jiu Kuei, Hua Jian would be able to heal her before she entered the city. After that, when Fu Ling and Zero's formless demons entered the city, Hua Jian had to instruct the two rappers to create the demonic door. This door was a special teleportation portal designed by Samon Tier and Feng Bujua together. In short, it was all about logistics. As for logistics, it was usually very important and tiring work, but it wasn't something that would be in a limelight. However, Hua Jian did it very well. After working as an editor for Feng Bujua for a while, and Yueqing had been trained. Now, she was no longer the arrogant but incompetent Missin. Instead, she was an elite who was used to the nightmarish pressure of work. Things like this in the game were not difficult at all. Che, then we'll be leaving, bird. Yeah, see you later. Following the rhythm of his own imagination, he said goodbye to Hua Jian while swaying back and forth. Then, they turned and headed in the direction of King's City. Seeing them leave, Hua Jian let out a sigh of relief. He was glad that his ears did not have to go through that kind of torture. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After a while, the demonic door suddenly let out a low humming sound. Accompanied by two fleeting flashes, Ruo Yu and Xiao Ling walked out of the door together. Chapter 1109. Main Universe, Potter's Planet. This planet was less than 1/6 the size of Earth. It had a permanent population of 280 million and a floating population of about 100 million. This place was known as the Rotten Harbor. Space pirates, interstellar wanted criminals, illegal merchants, and mutant monsters could be seen everywhere on this planet. They were like a group of flies attracted by the stench, gathering here to prepare for their next transaction. There is no doubt that this was a place governed by the underground order. Although there was no so-called government, law, or law enforcement organization, there were rules here. Everyone was a supervisor, and everyone was a law enforcer. Even the most notorious criminal in the universe didn't dare to cause trouble here. Not to mention killing and robbing. If you dared to dine and dash on Potter's Planet, the boss and the onlookers would make you into a full table of dishes to pay off the bill. In a sense, this was very ironic. On planets with laws, many people, especially those who had a lot of social resources, could often get away with all kinds of means. They hurt, plunder, plagiarize, cheat, oppress, distort the truth, and act tyrannically. In the end, they would only receive some superficial punishment or even get away with it. However, on this lawless planet, everyone had to pay the price for their actions. Of course, the price wasn't reasonable. At the end of the day, this world was an unreasonable place. Similarly, it was also unreasonable. More people would still choose to stay in a place where there were legal restrictions, sharing relative fairness with those who were in the same social class as them. However, there was no such person on Potter's Planet. Bang, creak, the sound of the movable door opening attracted everyone's attention. Under the gazes of dozens of people, an earthling wearing a purple long suit walked in. This was a bar that adhered to the traditional Western style of the United States. There was no annoying music here, no flashing lights, and no large group of empty, lonely, vulgar, and self-righteous idiots jumping around on the dance floor. There was a bar and a few tables of customers. As for the music, a black man sitting in the corner playing the piano should be the standard. As long as you ordered him a glass of wine, he would play a top-notch jazz solo that you couldn't hear anywhere else. However, it was best not to talk to him, let alone ask about his past. Otherwise, he would make you his past too. Tap, tap, tap. After Feng Buju entered the bar, the slightly noisy environment quieted down. This made the sound of his boots stepping on the wooden floor very obvious. At this moment, the bartender, the waitress, the black man playing the piano, and all the customers stopped what they were doing and silently stared at Brother Bujue. The indescribable and oppressive atmosphere was enough to make anyone turn around and run away. However, Fong Bujue didn't feel uncomfortable at all. He walked to the bar as if nothing had happened and jumped onto a high chair, considering that most of the customers were about 5 times the size of a human. The height of the chairs here were also relatively large. He propped his elbow on the bar and looked at the bartender and said, "Fatty, give me a bowl of fried paste noodles." The bartender was indeed a fatty. His head was like a toad, his body was round, his skin was light green, and there were webbing between his fingers. Therefore, he didn't care that Fong Bujue called him fatty. After 2 seconds, the bartender looked at Brother Jew and replied, "I don't have fried paste noodles here." "Then I'll have fishball noodles," Fong Bujue said. "I don't have fishball noodles here either," the bartender said again. "Then I'll have eel noodles," Brother Jew said again. "This is a bar. There is no noodles here," the bartender said. "Then I'll have fish balls," Brother Jew said. "No fish balls." The bartender's mouth began to twitch. "Then do you have fried paste?" Fong Bujue asked again. "No," the bartender said and immediately added, "By the way, we don't have eel either." "Okay." Fong Bujue shrugged helplessly. Just as the bartender was about to let out a sigh of relief, "I want curry rice." Fong Bujue ordered something else that was out of the ordinary. "I only have drinks here." The veins on the bartender's head were about to burst. "Don't order anything else." "Oh, you should have said so earlier." Brother Jew smiled. "Give me a bowl of tofu pudding. I want it salty." Just as the bartender couldn't take it anymore and was about to flip out, "Hey, kid." A customer who had taken over a table stood up and yelled at Fong Bujue. Brother Jew heard the voice and turned around. He saw a large, brawny rhinoceros man striding toward him. "What are you doing, Rocksteady?" Fong Bujue looked at the man and teased him. Rocksteady is the name of Brother Rhino from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The rhinoceros man didn't get the joke, but he didn't mind it. He continued, "If I'm not mistaken, you are that Fong Bujue?" "Yes, that's me," Fong Bujue replied. "How can I help you?" "Humph." The rhinoceros man huffed through his nose and rushed to Brother Jew. He used a condescending gaze to stare at the latter for 5 seconds, and then he suddenly grinned. "Ha! Ha! I'm your fan. Can I have your autograph?" Fong Bujue laughed as well. "Ha ha! Sure. You can even shake my hand and take a picture with me." "Really?" The rhinoceros man's eyes widened with excitement. "Of course," Fong Bujue answered easily. "Ah." Then the people at the table closest to the bar stood up together. The leader, a man with a snake face, stuck his tongue out at Brother Jew. We are also your fans, Mr. Fong. I wonder if we can shake your hand and take a picture with you." Of course. Fong Bujue did not wait for them to finish and gave his promise easily. "Mr. Fong, can I give you a hug? Please write something for my 1-month-old daughter. A normal swear word will do." Instantly, the people in the bar rushed over and surrounded Brother Jew at the bar. It was like a fan meeting, obviously, among the neutral and chaotic factions in the main universe. Fong Bujue had a very high reputation and was extremely popular. However, it appeared like not everyone was his fan. At that moment, there was one more person in the bar. He did not approach Brother Jew, but put down the money without saying a word and silently left the bar. And his every move, naturally, did not escape Fong Bujue's eyes. 15 minutes later, in a dark alley about 10 kilometers away, a figure wearing a hooded jacket and hiding his face under the hood was moving quickly in the shadows. This figure was none other than the person who had left the bar earlier. In just 15 minutes, he was able to walk such a long distance on foot. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary creature. Clang, clang, clang. Just as the figure was about to walk out of the deserted alley, a few heavy sounds of steel treading on the ground rang out in front of him. Accompanied by the sound of footsteps, a humanoid mecha about 3 meters tall appeared at the entrance of the alley, blocking the path of the figure. Seeing this, the figure immediately turned around and tried to escape. However, when he turned around, he found that a tall man with a camera was standing there. He didn't know when, but there was already a tall man standing there. Hiss! The next second, a strange laughter came out from the loudspeaker on the chest of the mecha. Unfortunately, you have been surrounded. When the figure heard that, he glanced at the mecha and then at the cameraman before him, and then he made a decision. Who? Huh? He suddenly bent over, squatted on the ground, and took several deep breaths. This process lasted for about 5 seconds. Then, the figure let out a roar. Huh? Before he finished shouting, he suddenly exerted force from the bottom of his foot, creating a large hole in the ground. At the same time, he shot up like a cannonball from an anti-aircraft gun, flying into the air in an extremely high parabola. He thought that this movement would allow him to escape from his pursuers. But he was wrong. High, more than 100 meters in the air, the man named Feng Bujue had been waiting for him. You jumped quite high. When Brother Ju said these 2 sentences, the figure just happened to fly over. Brother Ju stretched out his hand and easily grabbed the arm of the figure and stopped him. You? What do you want? At this moment, the face under the hood was finally revealed. His facial features were similar to that of a human, but he had no hair. His skin was composed of 4 colors: white, purple, light purple, and flesh color. On the surface, there were exposed muscle lines and some crustacean-like substances. Don't be nervous. I just want to talk to you. Feng Bujue tilted his head and looked directly into the eyes of the other person. He said the other person's name in a languid tone. The god of eternal life. This god of eternal life was the mysterious creature that was imprisoned on the rabbit planet, Longhair Fortress, and the top floor of the totem tower. His name was Duoma. I have nothing to talk to you about, Duoma replied. He tried to break free from Feng Bujue's grip and continue to escape, but after a few struggles, he realized that the other person's strength was far above his. Don't waste your energy. Feng Bujue continued to say calmly, your strength is extremely weak now and very unstable. Even if I let go of my hand, you can't escape from my evil clutches. The words he used to describe himself were not words that ordinary people would use, but they were indeed very appropriate. Why don't you listen to what I have to say first? It won't take up too much of your time, he said, and let go of the other person's arm. After all, I'm in a hurry. Chapter 11:10. On the other hand, inside the mirror world, an intense battle was unavoidable. By then, Phantom Dawn, lying drunk, Meng Jingchan, and Sashimi had surrounded the 6-door mirror demon, while Understanding Death led the exhausted Azura away from the mirror demon. Even though Azura's interference had caused a lot of trouble for regulation, after some consideration, Understanding Death still decided to lend him a hand. This was because Understanding Death had a feeling that something had gone wrong with this match. Theoretically speaking, as a member of Brahmin, Azura should not have appeared in the scenario of the finals. It was fine for anyone to enter the scenario, but not the players. In other words, there had to be a story behind this man's appearance before the members of regulation. If he was killed by the mirror demon, then the reason behind it would be unknown. Brother's secret weapon. Understanding Death had naturally studied this substitute of Brahmin before and knew his position. Why don't you tell us what's going on? Be careful. The next second, Azura yelled at the 4 people in the distance. This guy can map the damage received to the attacker's body proportionally. Clearly, Azura's response was completely different from what Understanding Death wanted him to say. However, objectively speaking, the information he provided was very timely and very useful. If Azura did not shout out immediately, the 4 people over there would have suffered a great loss. Thank you for the reminder. Understanding Death was startled, but he still thanked Chun Gu before asking. But that's not what I want to ask. What I want to ask is, how did you end up in this scenario? You still don't know? Azura raised his head to look at Understanding Death. The match just started, and the game space was invaded by the anomaly. What did you say? Understanding Death's expression and tone showed that he really did not know. They can invade the game space? I was surprised as well, but that is the truth, Azura answered as he took out a strange drink from his inventory and took 2 sips. The anomalies tore open holes in the walls of various public spaces and even private spaces, and they used a large number of mass-produced soldiers to attack the players. He paused. Since I've been to the inner world before and have mastered the ability to move freely in the data layer, I've been to the inner world before and gained the ability to move freely in the data layer. Therefore, not long after the invasion started, I entered one of the data gaps to try to deal with their boss. Then, he turned to glare at the mirror demon and spat. Who would have thought that I would end up in a place like this? There's actually such a thing. Even understanding death felt a little lost after hearing such a huge amount of information. His teammates also heard Azura's words, but they were focused on the battle with the mirror fiend and had no time to think about it. About 10 seconds later, understanding death spoke again. No matter what, the most important thing now is to deal with the mirror demon. After we deal with it, we can think about other things. Then he looked at Azura. How about it? Can you still help? When he asked that question, Azura had already finished the unknown drink in his hand. Humph. Even if you don't ask, I'm going to help. Azura threw away the empty bottle and stood up. It looked like the thing he had just drunk had restored his physical strength to the level where he could fight. I've already thought of a way to defeat this so-called mirror demon. At the same time, in the data link layer, this is bad. There are more and more of them. Shadow King looked at the hundreds of figures before him and tried to adjust his breathing. Hearing this, Matcha Cookie, who was standing not far from him, said in a serious tone, compared to the increasing number of enemies, my mechanical creations are decreasing. I'm sure everyone has forgotten about her, so I'll introduce her again. Matcha Cookie, this female player who hasn't appeared since S1. Her ID has only been mentioned a few times, and she was one of the 10 VIP players in the last tournament. She was the key player in defeating one of Lute's forms. She was ranked 17th on the combat power ranking, just above Zombie Blade King. Matcha Cookie was not the type to fight head-on. She always stayed away from the most dangerous areas of the battlefield. Thus, she successfully became a member of the last batch of survivors. Even their Mountain River Society staff officer, Chiu Fengsa, died, but she was completely fine. As the situation worsened, Matcha Cookie had no choice but to go to the front line. At this moment, she had released all her mechanical creations. Together with Shadow King, who was controlling the blue blood golem, evolved from the blood golem, they fought against the increasing number of Link's army. I don't have much stamina left either. Several seconds later, Su Huaishang, who had retreated from the front line, picked up where Matcha Cookie left off. We can't continue like this. Facing such a large number of enemies, we'll have to give it our all to survive, much less win. Goddess Su had also joined in the fight against Link's army. She had suffered several light injuries during the battle. Don't give up, just wait a little longer. Xiao Tan said, as long as we can hold on until Brother Zhu arrives, I say, when will your Brother Zhu arrive? Not a scaredy cat, who had almost lost her combat ability, interrupted him anxiously. Will he only come when everyone is dead? I don't know how long that will take. Xiao Tan's answer was firm, but since he said he will come, he will do it. To be honest, Atobi, who was on the same side as them, turned to add, so what if he arrives? His voice was soft, and he looked tired. You've seen the situation before us. Even if one more player arrives, what can it change? His question caused everyone to descend into silence. 5 seconds later, hey, you guys stop chatting. Tan Lang, who was fighting against Link's army, shouted as he retreated. If you guys don't come to help, the few of us will be done for. Then, Shiva will be the only one left to hold the fort. Under Tan Lang's orders, they had no choice but to regroup and attack again. Actually, they did not want to stop and chat, but their stamina, spirit energy, and life points had all reached a point where they were almost depleted. As for their skills, items, soul eyes, and other abilities, they had almost used up all of them. If they did not stop to rest every once in a while, not only would they not be able to deal with Link, they would run the risk of collapsing in the middle of the battle. In other words, every player who was fighting there had reached their limit, but the Links were still as lively as ever. The increase in numbers did not weaken their individual power. No matter what their power was, from what they saw, It was very similar to unlimited proliferation. Ha! Humans are indeed creatures with great adaptability. At this moment, one of the 100 or so lynx said to the players with a smile, "Your thoughts change from destroy me to suppress me and now to survive." His tone was dripping with mockery. Based on the situation, you keep making changes and compromises. Following the change in your thoughts and will, your actions will adjust accordingly. Furthermore, this kind of adjustment does not need to be done through precise calculation. It can be done through instinct. While he was talking, the other lynx were still attacking the player's defense line, causing bursts of light dust from energy explosions on the battlefield. Link took the time to look at the other side of the battlefield and thought, Infinite seems to be entangled by a few troublesome characters. At that moment, Infinite was still fighting against Uncle Worthless, Hong Hu, and Sleepy Dream. It seemed like the outcome would not be decided in a short period of time. Oomph! Link snorted and muttered to himself, "Fine, then I will work harder on my side. Once I finish off this last batch of resistance, I will be free to help you." Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Almost at the same time Link made up his mind, from the sky, another large group of black shadows fell, and this time, the total number of Links that fell was 300. Chapter 11:11. They actually have more people. Looking at the people descending from the sky, Shiva's tired eyes finally showed signs of despair. Honestly, if not for Shiva, the front line formed by the players would have been crushed by the Link army. With all his firepower, Shiva was able to fend off the ambush of 50 Links by himself. He used Flying Flame Punch to refresh the stacking effect of Ash's armor, used Moon Picking Flame to deal AoE damage, and used Tyrant's Rage to recover his life points. If he could not hold on any longer, Shiva still had Scatter Palm and Fong Force, 2 close combat skills. He also had Impenetrable Spear and Root Instinct, 2 life-saving skills. The crossfire from Heavenly Hourglass also created a great space for him to maneuver. In other words, in this battle, Shiva had fully demonstrated his power as the second strongest player in Thriller Paradise. Perhaps his punching skill was not as good as 7 kills and lying drunk. His swordsmanship was not as good as Swordless Swordsman and Su Huaishang. His swordsmanship was not as good as Blade Runner and Meng Jingchan, and his sorcery was not as good as Atobi. But Shiva's all-roundness was something that others could not compare to. Unfortunately, with his power, he could only hold on until this point. Originally, the 100 or so Links had already caused the players to be overwhelmed and exhausted. Now that there were 300 more, the situation was like an avalanche. Almost at the same time as the Links landed, the players started to retreat. They knew very well that it was impossible to maintain the front line. If they stayed on the front line, they would die in the blink of an eye. As they expected, several seconds later, the Link army launched an unstoppable charge. With a charge of more than 400 super strong individuals, even Shadow King's blue-blooded stone demon was blown into pieces. Due to the existence of Life Link, Shadow King himself was heavily injured, but thankfully, he was still alive. The various robots that Matcha Cookie had released did not survive this wave of attack. They were all turned into scrap metal. Of course, their sacrifice was worth it. Relying on the time that the golems and machines bought, Shiva and the rest of the players managed to retreat safely and keep their lives. A futile struggle. Seeing this, Link sneered again. He then raised his voice and shouted, "What's the point?" With that, Link's army got into formation and charged towards the retreating players once again. Is this the end? At this moment, Shiva, who was closest to the enemy, muttered, "Hurry up and run." Defeating army's figure appeared beside him. "Greedy wolf, and I still have stamina. If we fight with our lives on the line, we should be able to buy you some time." "Forget it." Su Huaishang took a step forward and shook her head. "With our current stamina, the enemy only needs to split up a dozen people to catch up with us." "That's right," Atobi agreed. "There are too many enemies, and every one of them is very powerful. Once the formation is fully spread out, you won't be able to hold them off." Then, she was not afraid. Dragging her heavily injured body, she took out her weapon and stood on the front line. "We will fight with our lives on the line." Her words ended this short discussion. No one came up with any other suggestions because everyone knew they were in a desperate situation and they had no other choice. On the other hand, on Infinite's side, it seems like your companions are about to be finished. While dealing with the siege of the three people around him, Infinite glanced at Link with a relaxed attitude. He then turned back to his opponents and said, "You guys, how much longer can you entangle with me like this? Unemployment, bankruptcy, palm." Uncle Worthless used action to reply. Spear Howl, Dragon Spin. Tire Dream did the same. Super Elastic, Vacuum Wave. Hong, who naturally did the same. This three-man team of the Worthless Alliance had the most powerful offensive power in the entire game. They were on the same level as Regulation's Drunken Dream, Brahman's Four Heavenly Kings, and Jianghu's Dao Jian Shao. Furthermore, the composition of their abilities was more logical. Some were ranged, some were close, some were damage, and some were crowd control. Their team composition was also very suitable. They had a wise general, a fierce general, and a super strong player who was good at both offense and defense. Because of that, they could do something that other teams could not. Use the appropriate rhythm, strength, and type of continuous attacks to successfully suppress Infinite. Continue. Don't stop, and don't be instigated by him. After Hong, who finished his attack, he quickly took the time to yell at his teammates. That is true. Tire Dream was still fighting. Sooner or later, our stamina will be exhausted. Furthermore, once the people on the other side are taken care of, the group of men in suits will rush over. Right? Uncle Worthless added. Then there is nothing we can do. Hong, whose attitude was very firm. What we can do is to take care of the battle situation that we are in charge of, and believe that they can also do their part well. At this point, he paused for 2 seconds, and with an angry expression, he continued, "Although I don't want to admit it, according to my analysis, under the current situation, no matter what we, and everyone else present, do, it will not change the outcome of the battle." His expression turned serious. What we can do now is to delay the opponent as much as possible before the turnaround arrives, and, as he said that, he cast a B-grade skill at Infinite to limit this monster's further self-evolution. Oh! Infinite heard Hong Hu's words, and his expression changed slightly. This bespectacled young man. Looks like you are a wise general. He laughed coldly. Hee. So up until now, the few of you have been using this kind of attack that is just enough to cause damage to me, but not enough to increase my self-healing ability and the upper limit of my defense. This was your idea, right? So what if it was? Hong Hu freed his hands, adjusted his glasses, and replied in a provocative tone. How is it? Infinite repeated these 2 words, and then, screech. In the next second, he had already appeared behind Hong Hu. After another second, Hong Hu's head fell from his neck. Until the moment of his death, his face did not have time to show a trace of horror. If you really want me to answer, Infinite imitated Hong Hu's tone and said provocatively, "That's the answer. You." Until Infinite's voice fell, Tired Dream suddenly turned around and glared at him. "Have you been playing with us all this time?" Infinite laughed. "Trash that can't even test out my maximum speed. You deserve to be played." He spread out his hands and said arrogantly, "Why do you think I'm entangled with you?" He did not wait for the 2 in front of him to respond and continued on his own. "I can see that your strength is not bad, and I feel that you have the ability to make me stronger, so I played with you." He snorted coldly and turned his head to glance at Hong, who was turning into a white light. "But since that military advisor of yours doesn't want me to do as I wish, then I don't have to pretend anymore, right? Bastard." Tire Dream was still enraged in the end. He raised his spear and rushed forward and used his killer move with all his might. Fierce God punishes the heavens. Before he finished speaking, the move arrived. When Infinite saw the overwhelming spear energy rolling towards him, not only did he not dodge or retreat, he even revealed an excited look. After a moment, accompanied by a loud bang, the right half of Infinite's torso was shattered into pieces of light. However, he was not affected by this injury at all, and immediately twisted his body taking advantage of the momentum to turn half a circle and clamped the tip of Tired Dream's spear under his left armpit. Mere human. While Infinite clamped down on Tired Dream's weapon, his damaged body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. You dare to call yourself God punishes the heavens? Ah, Tired Dream roared, and with a quick twist of his wrist, he urged his inner strength and wanted to use his spear to break his opponent's arm. Not bad. However, Infinite was disdainful. But it's useless. Ha! Ha ha! He laughed wildly and swung his reconstructed right arm, and in the blink of an eye, he turned Tired Dream's upper body into a pile of meat paste. Chapter 11:12. Uncle Chai, I think it's settled then, Hong Hu said. I also think this is the most suitable. Tired Dream nodded in agreement. Anyway, I don't have any objections. Shadow King added. But when Uncle Worthless replied, he seemed to lack confidence. I don't think I'm suitable to be the team leader at all. He subconsciously touched the back of his neck. I'm not good at ordering others around. As he said that, he looked at Hong Hu. How about you do it, Hong Hu? Hong Hu laughed. Uncle Chai, the so-called team leader, doesn't have to be an existence that gives orders. Moreover, Shadow King continued, even if you're not the strongest in terms of intelligence and strength, you can still be the team leader as long as Tired Dream continued, as long as you have enough cohesion and a sense of responsibility. He looked at Uncle Worthless. From these 2 points, we're far inferior to you. That's right. Hong Hu continued. To put it bluntly, to be a leader, you have to have the kind of charisma that makes people want to follow you to the end, even if they have to give up their lives. He smiled and shook his head. That's a quality that comes from being born with a personality that's formed after birth. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of thing. The corner of Uncle Worthless' mouth twitched. Since you're all praising me so much, I can't refuse. Blood and light made the air sweet and hot. Fragments of memories came unbidden. Cohesion and a sense of responsibility. Seeing his teammates killed in an instant in front of his eyes, Uncle Worthless could not help but be a little absent-minded. Have I disappointed the people around me again? Sunglasses guy, you still have time to daydream? Finite's words pulled Uncle Worthless' thoughts back. Following the words, a green energy beam shot out from his eyes. Ugh! By the time Uncle Worthless reacted and looked down, his chest had already been pierced by the beam of light. He couldn't help but groan and hurriedly took off his sunglasses and threw them away. 2 seconds later, Uncle Worthless' body, which had been fatally injured, quickly turned into a phantom and disappeared. His main body, on the other hand, had moved to the place where the sunglasses were. His injuries had healed. You have quite a lot of life-saving methods. Upon seeing this, Infinite sneered and shot out another beam of light from his eyes. This time, Uncle Worthless was prepared. He dodged in advance, but in the end, he only barely avoided being hit. A layer of flesh was scraped off his left shoulder. Still not dead, when Infinite saw that his opponent was still alive even after receiving 2 of his not-going-easy moves, he revealed an impatient expression. Too stubborn. That's annoying. After a loud shout, Infinite suddenly appeared right in front of Uncle Worthless. With an earth-shattering force, he threw out a straight punch. This was the simplest, most direct, and fastest way to attack. But considering the huge difference in speed and strength between the attacker and the defender, this naturally became the most efficient way to attack. Whoosh! As the penetrating power of this punch far exceeded Uncle Worthless' defense, and its speed was unimaginably fast, when Infinite's right arm pierced through Uncle Worthless' abdomen, the latter didn't even feel much pain. Even the sound of the fist piercing through the body was as light as the wind. Puff! Immediately after, Uncle Worthless spat out a large mouthful of blood, which immediately splashed onto Infinite's face. TSK. Infinite snorted. My strength increased too quickly. I almost couldn't hold it back. According to Infinite's original plan, his punch should have shattered his opponent, just like using a hammer to smash an ice cube. However, The actual effect was like using an iron rod to poke through a paper window. Oh well. He then wiped the blood off his face with his left hand, looked at Uncle Worthless, and grinned. Hee, I'll let you, this trash, live for a few more seconds and feel a little more pain. Trash, huh? At this time, Uncle Worthless' eyes were already unfocused. The pain that came late finally came, but he didn't even have the strength to scream. F***CK. Repeating a year in second year. Did you see the face of their principal? I've never been so embarrassed in my life. I told you not to bring this back home. You said that since he looks good, he must be smart, but in the end, he's just a piece of trash. Retard. Nonsense. Who could tell in the beginning? Don't give me advice after the fact. In the end, isn't it because you can't give birth to him? Can you keep your voice down? Are you afraid that the neighbors don't know about our family's affairs? Surname Chai. I'm teaching you a lesson today to make you remember. You better remember this. Stay away from the girls in our class in the future, understand? You think you can show off just because you're a gigolo? Do you believe that I'll make it up to you? Hey, I'm talking to you. Raise your head. Let me warn you again. There are some people that you, trash, can't afford. Chai, can you be more serious? Every time we rehearse, you're dragging everyone down. Yeah, can't you have some team spirit? Do you think that we have to accommodate you just because you're a foreigner? I say, don't you have a saying in China, if you want to be noble in front of others, you have to suffer behind others? Hasn't anyone taught you this before? That's enough. Everyone, let's stop talking. He's already working hard. What's wrong with talking about him? He's always dragging us down like a piece of trash. Can we talk about him? Mr. Chai, right? We've already looked at your resume. To be honest, the group you were in previously had very limited influence in Korea. Saying that it was a flash in the pan is already being polite. With your qualifications and age, I'm afraid you don't meet our company's requirements. You don't have to say anymore. I have nothing to say to you anymore. What can't you do? He's already a boss at the age of 25 or 26. What about you? You don't even have a stable job. Take it that I'm begging you. Please stop pestering me. I'm still young. I don't want to be tied to your tree for the rest of my life. Little Chai, it's not that I want to criticize you. You're almost 30 years old. Why are you still so unreliable? You can make so many mistakes just by collecting parking fees. How can I protect you if you sleep the whole night on a night shift? All right, you don't have to say anything. Go to the finance department and settle the bill. You don't have to come tomorrow. Don't you like to play games? You don't even have the energy to go to work. This is the best. You can go home and play. See if you can earn a salary. All of a sudden, fragments of memories surged into his mind like a tide. Yeah, Uncle Worthless whispered, I think I've always been called trash. At the same time, Infinite was about to pull back his right arm and throw Uncle Worthless away. But when he tried to pull back his arm, he realized he couldn't. What do you mean by this? Infinite looked up and realized that his arm had been firmly gripped by Uncle Worthless' hands, stuck in the bloody hole in the opponent's abdomen and unable to move. Don't tell me you still want to resist. Maybe. They're right. As Uncle Worthless muttered his secret skill, cardboard box kill was activated. In a split second, a huge cardboard box fell from the sky, covering both him and Infinite. My path in life has been formed by countless criticisms and disappointed gazes. The cardboard box pressed down on Uncle Worthless and Infinite, falling straight down from the sky. The funny thing about growing up is, when you haven't grown up yet, you firmly believe that you are different from the rest. But at that time, you choose to stick to the rules because you are afraid of being different from the rest. You are afraid of being treated as a freak by your peers and isolated. And when you've grown up, you admit that you're ordinary, but at that time, you choose to be different in front of others. Because you're afraid of being mediocre, afraid of being seen as mediocre, and being ignored. Boom! After a loud noise, the cardboard box fell to the ground. Instantly, the two people in the box were shrouded in an unknown darkness. When I'm young, I think there's nothing wrong with me. The problem is this world. But the more I mature, the more I realize that many of the problems are with me. Not long after it landed, the cardboard box began to vibrate violently, and there was even a fierce barking sound coming from inside. I am a person without talent, and I'm not very hardworking. When I truly realized this, I was already almost 30 years old. The Finite's tactical defense program had already reacted. While he was in the crate, fending off the bites from all directions, he was already executing the defense option. At this age, it's about time for me to be called an uncle. Chi. About 5 seconds later, dozens of green lights broke through the outer shell of the cardboard box and shot out from inside. It wasn't until I became an uncle that I realized what I'm good at, what I love, and what I can use to support myself. After the green light finished its sweep, the cardboard box massacre was also terminated. The already tattered cardboard box turned into data fragments in the blink of an eye and scattered on the ground. Perhaps, in real life, I'm destined to be a loser in life, a useless uncle. Infinite, who reappeared on the battlefield, still had not escaped from Uncle Worthless control. His right arm was still stuck in his opponent's torso. But here, in this thriller paradise, there are partners who trust me and rely on me, friends who truly respect me and love me. Uncle Worthless' voice was still very soft. The injuries on his body made it so that he could not make much noise. At this moment for them, I will not fall so easily. Infinite could not understand Uncle Worthless at all. From his perspective, he could not understand it either. Therefore, he only used his usual attitude to reply. Will not fall so easily? Ha ha. He mocked. Are you an idiot? What else do you want from a piece of trash who only has one breath left? Do you think by acting like you're not afraid of death, you can? DDD. Suddenly, an urgent alarm flashed in Infinite's mind, causing him to swallow the words that he was about to say. Warning. High energy reaction detected. Data identification frowny face Uncle Worthless forced hit. Tactical control option. Survival rate. 18% WTF? Infinite was shocked. 82% mortality rate? And there's no countermeasure. What does that mean? Fight head-on, then fight with the odds. Just as he was shocked, Uncle Worthless' eyes under the sunglasses were filled with determination. Even if you call me trash, it doesn't matter. As he spoke, he opened his arms and let go of Infinite's right hand. Instead, he grabbed his opponent's shoulders. A man who was already beaten to the brink of death, who knew where the strength came from, had his 10 fingers deeply embedded into Infinite's shoulders, gripping him tightly. Now I'll show you. Uncle Worthless took a step forward and pulled the tall Infinite up. The power of trash. Impossible. When he was pulled up, Infinite was still desperately refreshing the tactical control program, trying to find a way to deal with it. But there was nothing he could do. Ha ha. In the end, Uncle Worthless laughed out loud. He grabbed his opponent and launched a suicidal ultimate throw to the ground. You trash. Follow me into the abyss of despair. Chapter 11:13. While Finite and Uncle Worthless were fighting fiercely, Link's battle had also reached a critical juncture. The 400-plus Links formed a formation in the shape of a wild goose. Half of them leaped into the air, while the other half remained on the ground. They were heading towards the last batch of players who were still resisting. At that moment, almost everyone's face was filled with determination to die. Even Shiva was thinking of the phrase, perishing together. However, there was one person whose gaze was still determined. His will was unwavering. It's not time to give up yet. Wang Tanji let out a rare roar. His roar was clearly heard by his comrades beside him. However, it did not reignite their fighting spirit. Even if there's only one person left, we still have hope. Xiao Tan continued. Furthermore, there are still many people alive. We have all the time in the world. That was true. At that moment, other than the players who stayed in the center of the battlefield to resist, there were more than 100 surviving players. Most of them were likely phone. They knew that they were too weak. If they joined the battle, they would only be killed instantly or become a burden. Hence, they had all escaped to a faraway place, at least 500 meters away. Any closer, and they might be killed by Finite's finger bomb. They maintained their scattered positions and observed the situation. "Oof. Do you really think that those people can buy us any time?" After hearing Xiao Tan's words, Link immediately laughed and said, "Forgive me for being blunt. Once all of you die, they won't even be able to live for 2 minutes. As long as I use the 2 against 1 man-to-man method and split up to chase after them, I will be able to wipe them all out very quickly." "What 2 against 1 man-to-man?" Xiao Tan continued. "Do you think this is basketball?" As he spoke, he had already raised his sai in his hand. At the same time, Link had already closed in Ha. He laughed coldly and continued. "If this is basketball, then your current situation would be the latter half of the 4th quarter. You are behind by a large margin. Your stamina is basically depleted, and the audience has already left the court." "That's perfect." As soon as the words left his mouth, Wang Tanji moved. His figure suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. Even Link could not capture his movements with his vision. Huh. At that moment, Link's heart skipped a beat. What's the principle behind this? Link could sense that Xiao Tan was still nearby, but he could not catch sight of him. Theoretically speaking, such a situation was impossible. At this moment, Link was using more than 400 pairs of eyes to observe. The visual network formed by the common sight of more than 400 consciousnesses was like a super compound eye. Not only did it have amazing dynamic vision, but it could also observe things on a data level. Just how strong was his vision? To give a concrete example, even if there was an invisible fly that could fly at the speed of sound and had optical camouflage on it, Link could guarantee that this fly would always be in his line of sight. However, the situation now was that Xiao Tan, a 1.8-meter-tall man, was moving around in this area, but Link could not see him. What? 2 seconds later, Link became even more horrified, because in these 2 seconds, 20 Links had been beheaded, and each of their necks still had black flames left behind. What is he doing? Because of his hesitation, Link's army's advance was halted. More than 400 people stood in place, looking around in panic. But he still could not catch sight of Xiao Tan. What the hell is he doing? Shock and fear swelled in Link's heart. He soon realized that not only could he not use his vision to track the enemy, even his hearing seemed to be malfunctioning. A strange, deathly stillness descended upon Link. He could not hear the sound of Xiao Tan moving, the sound of his footsteps, the sound of the wind, and the sound of his sword swinging. He also could not hear the sound of his own death, the sound of his neck being cut, the sound of blood splattering, and the sound of his head falling to the ground. Everything was like a silent movie, a bloody and suffocating silent movie without any soundtrack. It was not until later that Link realized that this was caused by the second special effect of no music. This is outrageous. Looking at more than 100 themselves that had been killed in less than 10 seconds, the remaining 300 Links shouted in unison and scattered in all directions. It turned out that his strategy was effective. As the crowd dispersed, the efficiency of Xiao Tan's throat-slitting decreased, but it was still very fast. About 40 seconds later, Xiao Tan's figure finally reappeared. These 40 seconds felt as long as 40 hours to Link. There were originally more than 400 people, but now there were only 127 people left, and the remaining 100 people had run more than 300 meters away. Phew! Xiao Tan, who had reappeared, took a deep breath and continued his previous sentence. In basketball, the more you are on the verge of defeat, the more valuable it is to turn things around. Before he could finish his sentence, his body had already started to disintegrate from the bottom up. This was the price of Dance of Death. Just as the remark of the title stated, the burning will for freedom bloomed at the last moment, like a magnificent dance that led to the arrival of death. Currently, Xiao Tan was still unable to control this power that belonged to Black Flash, so this was an inevitable result. Sigh. Xiao Tan let out a rare sigh. In the end, he did not manage to wait for his brother Ju's arrival. Looks like I have reached my limit as well. He turned back to look at the other players. Everyone, please work harder. If you give up, the competition will end prematurely. Hey, you should have used the basketball joke once or twice. Is it really okay to say something like that before you die? You could have been cool for more than 3 seconds, but with one sentence, it was all ruined. Atobi could not tolerate Xiao Tan's behavior. Even if he had offended someone, he had to spit it out. Hey, quick, look over there. Before Atobi finished, Matcha Cookie yelped again. At this moment, she just happened to see Uncle Worthless using his throwing skill on Infinite from afar. Boom. The next second, the skill beating the Worthless landed squarely on Infinite's body. Theoretically speaking, this kind of skill from a wrestler should not have caused any damage to a creature like Infinite that had amazing self-healing power, but this skill from Uncle Worthless was indeed extraordinary. After the skill landed, Uncle Worthless, who had already exceeded his limit, died as expected. However, Infinite was also heavily injured. After he was sent flying, the pixels on his body were damaged, turning into a very blurry state. To put it more vividly, before he was hit, his style was at the level of a next-gen console game, but after he was hit, his style was at the level of an 8-bit game, Little Tyrant. This is my chance. Xiao Tan, who saw this, reacted instantly. In this fleeting moment, Xiao Tan's battle instinct beat his mind to it, driving his body to react. Even though 2/3 of his body had turned into data fragments, the part above his chest was still there. In other words, his eyes could still see, and his hands could still move. And this was enough. Magic, piercing, light, killing, cannon. Early on in the Fierce Ghost Power Company scenario, Brother Ju had given this one-time consumable skill to Xiao Tan. Until today, Wang Tanji had finally waited for the most suitable time to release it. Chi, in the blink of an eye, accompanied by the sound of energy breaking through the air, an orange-yellow shockwave, surrounded by a spiral beam, roared out, heading straight for Infinite. The power of that skill was obviously above Infinite's green light beam. Its power even changed the color of the surrounding scenery. Don't even think about it. However, no one expected that, just as the light beam was about to hit Infinite, for links who were closer to the attack trajectory rushed out from the middle of the way, spreading out their bodies, and met it head-on without hesitation. Even though their bodies could not withstand the power of the magic-piercing beam cannon. Even though the 4 links were penetrated by the light beam in the blink of an eye, but they still managed to delay the light beam a little and successfully bought about 0.8 seconds for Infinite. And this 0.8 seconds was enough for the perfect creature to react. In the end, the magic-piercing beam cannon only grazed half of Infinite's body and did not hit any vital parts. Xiao Tan's efforts were all for naught, and he himself was completely turned into white light at the moment when the light beam was exhausted. Damn it! A few seconds later, Infinite fell to the ground in a sorry state, cursing angrily, "You bunch of trash! You really dare to do this!" His voice was extremely loud, and everyone within a kilometer could hear it. "I almost died. Almost." He roared like a crazy shrew. "Do you know what you are doing? You almost. Just a little bit more. Just kill me, this perfect creature." Along with the roar, Infinite's body began to change again, and his pixels were increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye, quickly returning to his original style. Unforgivable, heinous crimes. When Infinite got up from the ground, he once again transformed into a 2-meter-tall burly man with a mercury-like texture and sculpture-like muscle lines. And on top of his head, white, wild hair that draped over his shoulders, and under his eyebrow-less eye sockets, his pair of eyes had also turned into a pupil-less state that shone with white light. Heinous crimes. Even death can't wipe out your crimes. Infinite roared towards the sky, and the roar turned into substantial energy that rolled out, forming a terrifying shockwave. Obviously, Infinite, who had survived the baptism of the magic-piercing beam cannon and the magic-piercing beam cannon, had once again taken a huge stride to evolve. The power of his roar was on par with the space-time sonic boom that occurred when the explosion tunnel was formed. Cough! Puff! The Shadow King, who was already heavily injured, could no longer withstand such an impact. Even though defeating armies came to his side in time to help him block most of the shockwave, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. After spitting it out, he could not help but say with a pale face, "I suddenly feel that death might be easier." He, defeating armies, heard that, turned his head, and revealed a bitter smile. "To be honest, I feel the same way. If you are a man, then don't say such useless words." At this time, not a scaredy cat interrupted. "Wang Tanji fought to this extent just to protect a glimmer of hope for us. Her fighting spirit had been reignited. He is right. If we give up, everything will be over. No matter how bad the situation is, we cannot admit defeat in our hearts. We must." Chi. At that moment, a green, thin light beam pierced through not a scaredy cat's forehead. Her words, along with her life, came to an abrupt end. "That's strange." And the initiator of this attack, Infinite, when he pulled back his finger, he pretended to listen attentively. "Just now, someone seemed to be saying something over there. I think it's something like 'can't admit defeat,' 'hope,' or something like that." He snorted coldly. "Umph. Now that things have come to this, how can anyone still say such stupid things? This must be my imagination, right? You bastard." Su Huaishang was infuriated by the man's words and actions. She used the last of her strength, cursed, and charged forward. But Chi, with a soft whistle, the green light came again. The same process, the same ending. The current Infinite had become an existence that the players could not understand. Be it his own speed or the speed of the energy he released, they were all beyond the range of the player's reaction. Ignoring the fact that these elites were already exhausted, even if they were at their peak condition and were prepared, they would still be killed by Infinite using this method. Let me do the math. After Infinite killed 2 people, he calmly turned his head, then turned around and looked around. 119. He tilted his head. "Humph. I can kill them all in 1 minute." Once that was said, the players' expression changed. They all knew in their hearts that the man was not bluffing. But in the next second, there was a voice that objected to this. "Bastard, stop dreaming." That hearty, resonant voice and those childish lines made it easy to tell who it was. Infinite raised his head following the voice. "Why are there still people up there?" It was normal for him to be confused because until 10 seconds ago, there was still no one in the sky. Because of this, the answer to his question was obvious. The people had just entered this space within these 10 seconds. "I say, kid, are you out of your mind?" 2 seconds later, Piccolo, who was floating in the air with his flying spell, looked at flying Pegasus in the sky in his hand and said, "You can't even fly. Can't you wait until you land to talk to the enemy?" Chapter 11:14. It was a coincidence that Piccolo and unconstrained Pegasus appeared together. In this anomaly invasion, these two had similar encounters. They were both attacked in the storage room, and then they entered the data layer through the hole in the wall. The difference was that Piccolo could not leave the space through the door, but unconstrained Pegasus could leave through the elevator door. However, Brony was a more reckless person. He fought with the endless stream of redundant soldiers until all 6 sides of the storage room were destroyed, and he fell into the data layer. Later, the two of them met by chance in the data layer, and Piccolo brought Brony all the way to this data link layer. "What? You choose to stand on the side of the players?" Infinite looked at Piccolo and asked in a low voice. The way he looked at Piccolo was obviously different from the way he looked at the players. Firstly, it was because Piccolo was not a player, but an NPC. Secondly, it was because Piccolo's combat power was very, very strong. "Humph!" Piccolo snorted coldly and quickly descended from the sky with Brony. As he descended, he said, "I will not stand on anyone's side." With just this one sentence, he had already landed with unconstrained Pegasus. "I came here by following someone's key because I have a few words to tell him." As Piccolo spoke, he glanced at the empty space beside Infinite. But his key disappeared not long ago. His gaze moved to Infinite's face again. "I think he was killed by you." "You mean the man with the sunglasses?" Infinite continued. "Oh, that's him." Piccolo answered casually, and then he let go of unconstrained Pegasus and turned to look at the players. A few seconds later, his gaze stopped on the Shadow King. Screech. The next second, there was a sharp sound, and Piccolo's figure suddenly appeared in front of the Shadow King. "You are Uncle Worthless, partner, right?" Piccolo asked. Even the Shadow King did not know the relationship between Piccolo and Uncle Worthless. He hesitated for a few seconds before replying, "That's right." After getting a positive answer, Piccolo said, "Please pass a few words to him. Just say, 'Thank you for taking care of me during this period of time, but I have to return to my universe after all. Today's opportunity has arrived, and I must leave. In any case, we're still master and disciple. Help me say goodbye to him.'" After saying this, Piccolo lifted his head and flew up into the sky again. Wait, Tan Lang was the only military advisor left, so he quickly seized this last chance. "Since your Uncle Worthless, master, you should be on the same side as us, right?" He looked at Piccolo and said loudly, "We're counting on you. Only you can stop Infinite now." Hearing this, Piccolo stopped in midair, but he did not turn back. He only said coldly, "I refuse." "Why?" Tan Lang asked. "Because this has nothing to do with me." Piccolo replied in a matter-of-fact tone, "I'm not a creature of this universe. I have no obligation, and I have no need to interfere in such matters." He paused. "Also, between Uncle Worthless and me, there is no deep master-disciple relationship. I guided him just out of interest." Piccolo was not wrong. There was no need for him to get involved in this matter. His relationship with Uncle Worthless was not very good back then. When Uncle Worthless' level was not very high, he once went to a script world based on the Dragon Ball universe. In the script, he completed a hidden mission that had a very low trigger probability, but was extremely difficult to complete. And the reward for that mission was an arm that Piccolo had left behind when he was in a state of near death. The fact that Piccolo had the ability to regenerate was also known to everyone. Therefore, after Uncle Worthless brought the arm back to the storage room, and after some time, Piccolo was reborn in that space. However, due to the strength of his data being too shocking, he was completely restricted by the system. Not only were there many abilities that could not be used, but he was also limited to a state of absolutely not leaving the storage room. In other words, even if Piccolo beat himself up until only his head was left and then let Uncle Worthless take this head out of the storage room, he could not do it. In this way, the only thing that Piccolo could do was to meditate and practice martial arts in that space. In a sense, Piccolo was a little bit tricked by Uncle Worthless. But thinking about it from another perspective, this kind of result was also unexpected for Uncle Worthless. Moreover, if it wasn't for Uncle Worthless, maybe Piccolo would have directly died in his own universe. Well, I know what you're thinking. He can use the Dragon Balls made by others to be resurrected, but there's no end to this hypothetical discussion. Let's stop here. Piccolo, who had figured this out, accepted his fate. Anyway, the Namekians had long lives and few physiological needs, and he liked to be alone. So he stayed in Uncle Worthless' storage room with peace of mind. When he had nothing to do, Piccolo would teach him some fighting skills. Of course, Uncle Worthless would not be able to learn most of his skills. After all, the difference in battle power was too big, and Uncle Worthless did not have any Scion bloodline. For players with such fighting power, they could only learn moves like Magic Sealing Wave, Solar Fist, Fly, and so on. In addition to moves, Piccolo also had a lot of other knowledge that he could teach if he was in a good mood. And this part of knowledge, as long as Uncle Worthless could understand it properly, the system would also concretize it into a skill card. Seeing this, everyone must have understood. The main reason why Uncle Worthless, a fledgling professional player, could appear out of nowhere during the S1 period was because he had a godlike master behind him. In any case, at present, Piccolo had finally left that space with great difficulty. What he wanted to do most now was to find a way to return to his universe, and not get involved in a dangerous battle that had nothing to do with him. Just now, for a few seconds, Infinite, who was far away, panicked a little. At this moment, when he heard that Piccolo wanted to remain neutral, he laughed out loud. What a pity. Everyone, you thought you saw a life-saving straw, but in the end he did not give you face. Ha ha! After laughing for a few seconds, he raised his hand and prepared to use green aura to harvest people's heads. Then it's almost time to end it. You should all be prepared to die. Hey, I say you. Just as Infinite was about to make his move, suddenly, a voice came from behind him, calling out to him in a contemptuous tone. It would have been fine if it was not called, but once it was called, Infinite's expression changed abruptly, and he turned pale with fright. His reaction was also excusable, because he could tell that the person who spoke was, "You seem to be having fun," Feng Bujua said as he put his hand on Infinite's shoulder. "What's so funny?" At this point, he put his face next to Infinite's face, revealing an extremely dark smile. "Tell me about it too." You. Infinite immediately stuttered. His neck stiffened, and he turned his face around with a stutter. He met Brother Ju's face, which was so close that it was difficult to look at him directly. "Why are you here?" Infinite did not notice the other party's approach at all. This meant that the teleportation coordinates that Brother Ju entered this space was an inch or so behind him. "Why can't I be here?" Feng Buju asked with a smile. "Just because you and Link made a reverse induction program that will automatically run when Feng Bujua attempts to enter the data link layer." As soon as this was said, Link and the others' faces all changed color, and they were shocked. "How'd he know?" "Hee. That kind of thing, I can solve it with Chuck Norris's autobiography." Brother Ju shrugged and tilted his head. "It's completely meaningless." Before he finished speaking, Feng Bujua suddenly exploded and did something that was out of everyone's expectations. He jumped onto Infinite's back and wrapped his four limbs around the other party, holding him tightly. "What are you doing?" Infinite asked with a panicked expression. "I advise you not to move around." Feng Bujua lowered his voice and whispered into the other party's ear. "I've already tied a few Mark II grenades on my body, and the pull ring of each one is connected to a steel wire, and the steel wire is entangled with the string." He paused for half a second. Even I'm not sure how much vibration will cause the grenade to explode." Brother Ju's threat, at first, sounded a little ridiculous. Everyone knew, with Infinite's physique, even if he ate the grenades like snacks, it would be fine. If it really caused an explosion, at most it would blow Feng Bujua half to death. But this was also the meaning of this threat. One of the conditions in Special Contingency Plan F was that Infinite was not allowed to attack Feng Bujua. The attack here did not only refer to direct attacks, but also indirect attacks. For example, not only could Infinite not attack Feng Bujua himself, he could not even attack the ground beneath Feng Bujua's feet, because doing so might cause Feng Bujua to fall and get injured. Brother Ju used this point to come up with this shameless plan. When he said, "I have a grenade strapped to my body. If you move, it will explode," the moment he said that, Infinite was unable to move even if he wanted to. This was similar to the restriction of players being unable to actively harm their teammates in a team scenario. After knowing the possible consequences of actions, Special Contingency Plan F would prevent Infinite from turning his intention into action. "Hey!" After successfully sealing Infinite's movements, Feng Bujua yelled at Shiva and the rest. "Guys over there! Infinite has been hit by my ancient China fist technique, Golden Snake Entanglement. He will definitely not be able to move anymore. You guys should take this opportunity to take care of Link. Victory is in sight." Hearing this, all the survivors looked at Brother Ju with a pained expression as they muttered among themselves. Hey, is this guy serious? He said something about Golden Snake Entanglement, but why do I feel like he just hugged Infinite in a very wretched way? But how do you explain Infinite's panicked expression? Even if what he said is true, it's still not easy for us to do anything, right? That's right. Even though Wang Tangji has helped us take down several hundred links with our current combat ability, how are we going to take down the remaining 100 links? Currently, the players who were still resisting in the middle of the battlefield were Shiva, Atobi, Shadow King, Matcha Cookie, Defeating Armies, Greedy Wolf, Bloody Rose, Barcode, and several other players who were relatively powerful. The difference in numbers was 1 to 10 against Link, and in terms of condition, they were all exhausted and had almost used up all their skills. With their formation, they They would not even be able to protect themselves, much less take the initiative to attack. However, Fong Bujue told them to take care of Link, and victory is in sight. This made them speechless. However, there was still someone who agreed with Brother Ju's request. Humph! You don't need to tell me that. I have the same intention. This hearty shout came from the mouth of unrestrained spirit. Compared to the other players, Brother Ju's condition was much better. He was already rubbing his fists and could not wait to give it a try. Wait a minute, let Piccolo take the lead. After getting the response, Fong Bujue raised his voice again. Piccolo flew higher into the sky. He was trying to figure out a way to leave this place when he heard this. He immediately turned back to look at Fong Bujue on the ground. What are you talking about? Why should I help you take the lead? I have something on me that can bring you back to your own universe. Fong Bujue interrupted him and quickly added, as long as you help us take care of Link, I will give you the thing. Hearing that, Piccolo's expression shifted slightly. How do I know if you're telling the truth? Fong Bujue laughed. He immediately turned his head and said to Infinite, Infinite, did I lie? You didn't lie. Infinite was also troubled. He could only answer truthfully to Brother Ju's question. What he said is true. Oh, this time, Piccolo had no choice but to believe it. Because from Infinite's standpoint, there was absolutely no reason for him to help Brother Ju cover up a lie. Therefore, after a few seconds of consideration, Piccolo made up his mind. Humph! Fine. He once again descended from midair. Then, he took off the white shoulder pads and the cape that came with the shoulder pads and casually threw them on the ground. Boom! When the shoulder pads landed on the ground, it felt as if a truck had crashed onto the ground. Instantly, a pit was formed on the ground. Me too. Piccolo tilted his head to the left and right, moving his neck and shoulders. I haven't exercised properly for a long time. What the F***CK? At that moment, Link's heart was breaking down. This situation is not right. If I were to fight with this guy, the advantage in numbers is completely useless. But the scary thing was far from over. Little Infinite. At this time, Fong Bujue suddenly used a weird uncle's tone to tease Infinite. May I ask, how many ways are there to eliminate Link, and what are the differences? Please answer from the most efficient way and say it out loud. What the F***CK? Link, a special, high-ranking anomaly, had not even been 2 minutes after Fong Bujue's appearance, and he was already cursing out loud because of the opponent's extremely despicable behavior. For the players present, it was also the first time that they had heard an anomaly curse in public. There are 3 ways to eliminate Link. Even though Infinite was very unwilling, after 2 seconds, he could not help but open his mouth. The most efficient way is, At that moment, 7 to 8 Link who were closest to Infinite screamed and rushed over. But Piccolo came faster than them, and much faster. No matter what, he was still a super warrior from the Dragon Ball realm. He could even blow up the earth if he just clenched his teeth. He could literally destroy the sky, the earth, and the air. Link wanted to compete with Piccolo in terms of physical skills. Saying that it was like throwing an egg against a rock was too polite. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, accompanied by a sharp whistle after a burst of movement, Piccolo suddenly appeared behind Infinite and Brother Ju. When he appeared, his feet were already in a horse stance. Then, he raised both his arms and shouted. With every shout, Piccolo's palms would shoot out an air bomb. In less than 5 seconds, his hands were shooting out dozens of air bombs like a machine gun, and every one of them had considerable power. Those Link who tried to rush over, before they could even get within 20 meters of him, they had already been blown to smithereens. What the? So powerful? I suddenly feel like I'm hugging a big thigh. It's not just a big thigh, it's a giant thigh. There's no need for us to make a move anymore. Hey, then should I go up or not? My meteor punch is already itching for a fight. Other than unrestrained Sky Steed, who was slightly disappointed, the other players' eyes were shining with excitement. From a desperate situation to a good situation, the whole situation had been reversed in just a few minutes. Although they did not want to admit it and could not understand, but all of this was indeed a miracle brought about by Fong Bujue. The most efficient way is to lock it into an independent, closed scenario or sandbox and let the system format and delete it. On the other hand, Infinite's narration did not stop. Secondly, the second way is to isolate one of him, causing the ring to break. This way, his chain-spreading function will be ineffective and the number of them will not be able to increase again. Under this premise, all the existing individuals will be destroyed and he will die. Oh, this seems to be worth a try. Before Piccolo heard the third way, he had already acted. He rushed in front of a Link in a flash, and with a point of his finger, an electric cooker appeared on the ground. Oh no, that Link had already guessed what the other party was going to do, but with his speed, there was no way he could escape. Oomph, Piccolo sneered. A few years ago, I learned an interesting move from Supreme Kai. I'll let you guys broaden your horizons. As he said that, he spread out his 10 fingers and put out both palms. God's sealing wave. Chapter 11:15. There were two sides to the story. The result of Link's battle aside, the battle in the mirror realm at that moment, the members of Regulation finally understood what Feng Bujua meant when he said, "Before the hexagon mirror, all life is equal." After a few rounds of testing, the players realized that the Mirror Demon's main ability was not complicated. It was actually just reflection and feedback. The former could transmit the attacker's murderous aura back to the Mirror Demon, and the latter was the damage feedback. Note that it was feedback and not rebound. Rebound meant that the defender would rebound all or part of the attack energy released by the attacker. The Mirror Demon's feedback was based on a different principle. Using Azura's Tyrannical Phoenix Punch as an example, at that time, the skill undoubtedly hit the Mirror Demon, and the attack energy was completely absorbed by the Mirror Demon. There was no rebound. After being hit, the Mirror Demon was naturally injured, but how serious was the injury? In terms of numbers, it was about 21% of the total HP. This number was the difference between the damage of the Azura's Tyrannical Phoenix Punch, modified, and the Mirror Demon's life points and defense. The Mirror Fiend's feedback was the calculated damage difference. In other words, the attacker would receive the same amount of damage for the Mirror Demon. Why would the Mirror Demon say to Azura, "If my body was as weak as yours, you would be dead already"? What he really meant was, if it wasn't for my high defense and high HP, you would have killed yourself while killing me. Looking at this, some people might think that the Hexagon Mirror Demon was not that strong. At least this feedback ability was not that strong. But in reality, the reason this weak ability existed was because it was too strong. The system had no choice but to change its ability to this extent. Think about it. A monster that only lost 21% of its HP after being hit by the Azura's Tyrannical Phoenix Punch, modified. What kind of concept was its defense and life points? If the Mirror Demon's feedback was changed to rebound, or a feedback based on damage ratio was changed to feedback based on power, then it basically did not need to do anything. It could just stand there and take the hits to kill all the opponents. To put it simply, the Mirror Demon's ability, or rather its design concept, was mainly in the area of defense. It did not have that much destructive power, and it did not have any particularly effective crowd control skills. It also did not have the ability to suppress the player's physical skills or physique. The Hexagon Mirror Demon was a defense-type monster that had the absolute advantage in a battle of attrition. Other than the ability to reflect damage, its HP was very, very high, and its defense was very, very high. The most ridiculous thing was it had an amazing recovery rate. It was like the late-game bosses that appeared frequently in the Robot Wars series. Its tanking ability was already as strong and smelly as sh*T, but every round, it could automatically recover 10% of its maximum HP. In any case, it was just a battle of attrition. If the whole team ran out of spirit and ammo and still could not defeat it, then they might as well give up. The more they fought, the more hopeless it would become. And the strategy to defeat the Mirror Demon that Azura mentioned earlier was similar to the strategy used to defeat the boss in the Robot Wars series. The first step was for all 6 of them, including him, to go forward and surround the boss. The second step was for each of them to find the most comfortable position to attack the boss and figure out how to deal damage. The third step was for everyone to launch continuous and rhythmic attacks at the boss at the same time. As for how to attack, Azura had already figured out. There was no need to use skills that were too powerful because those skills usually had a long cooldown and would consume a lot of stamina. It would also increase the damage ratio of the feedback. The strategy that he came up with was for everyone to attack the mirror demon using normal attacks, as long as they could ensure that the power of their attacks could break through the mirror demon's defense. Theoretically, Azura's plan was indeed feasible. Assuming he and the other 5 members from Regulation could deal 1% damage to the boss per second, based on the average, then they would deal 6% damage per second. Assuming the mirror demon's HP recovery rate was between 2% and 4% per second, based on this ratio, the mirror demon would die in half a minute if they were fast and 1 minute if they were slow. And by then, the life points of the 6 attackers, on average, each of them would lose half of their HP at most. If everything went well, they would lose less than 30% of their HP. It had to be said that this was a rather brilliant strategy, or at least the tactical thinking was on the right track. Unfortunately, he was wrong about one thing. What's wrong? After fighting for about 5 minutes, the mirror demon noticed that the players were slowing down, so it opened its mouth to ask, "Guys, have you reached your limit? Stop wasting my time. Can I take a breather?" Phantom Dawn replied with a venomous tone, "I'm just burp." Meng Jingchan smiled bitterly. "I've had too much to drink. I'm just a bit drunk. Stop acting. I think you've used too much strength and suffered too much damage from the recoil." Sashimi chose to use a sarcastic way to remind Brother Zen to pay attention to his life points. Stop talking about useless things. Understanding death was more pragmatic. While he was attacking, he turned to look at Azura. "I say, did you miss something?" "Ah, no. Impossible." Azura did not look so good. The mental and physical pressure caused him to sweat profusely. "It should have died a long time ago. I don't know when it died, but I know I only have 1 health potion left. Factoring in the reseeding effect of the potion, I should be thanking the gods if this potion can recover 10% of my life points." When Lying Drunk answered, he did not seem to be panting. The man was really good. Ever since they entered the mirror world, it had been him clearing the monsters for the whole team. Not long ago, when they surrounded Feng Bujiwe, he had even used Dragon Fist, Burst. But now, when the others' attacks started to slow down, only Lying Drunk's rhythm did not falter. Perhaps an outsider would not be able to tell, but any professional player would be able to understand. This was the perfect performance of stamina control. For example, if a normal person were to perform a jump on the spot, the consumption of stamina points would be between 3 to 5 points. Only by deliberately adjusting one's breathing and movement would one be able to complete the jump with only 2 points. If one were to do it while lying drunk, it would naturally be 2 points. For a normal person to do 10 such jumps, the average exhaustion of stamina points would be 4 points. But for lying drunk to do 10 such jumps, it would be 2 points each time. Using this as an example, from small to large, many a little makes a mickle. Even if one did not take into account recovery ability, the difference was still considerable. And this was not some kind of talent. It was a skill learned through hard work. They were all professional players, but why would some people be able to climb to the top and be worshipped like gods? Why would some people only be second or third-tier players? Of course, talent was important, but to reach the top, one had to have the awareness of not treating oneself as a human being. Only then would one be able to reach the realm that normal people could not. Ha! How hilarious! Hearing their conversation, Mirror Demon chuckled. That eerie laughter sent chills down the spines of those who heard it. You don't know anything, but you're still talking about some plan so confidently. At the beginning of the battle, Azura had been explaining the strategy to the members of Regulation. After all, he was not afraid of being overheard. Who would have thought that this would become the basis for the Mirror Demon to mock them? The few of you should be the strongest among your kind, right? The demonic energy in the hexagon mirror rose as the mirror demon spoke. So, after you saw through part of my power, you naturally thought that you could kill me. It scoffed. Humph. But have you considered, other than power, what else can affect the outcome of battle? Its voice rose higher and higher. What is the basic factor that determines strength and weakness? Hearing that, Phantom Dawn was the first to react. He mumbled, "Is it strength?" Ha ha ha. Correct. The mirror demon guffawed and turned the mirror to face drunken life and arrest. You should have noticed it by now, right? Actually, before I was freed from the seal, I was already testing your strength. When that was said, the four's expression shifted. They reacted quickly and immediately understood why they kept running into monsters along the way, why the combat power of the monsters gradually increased, and why when they decided to stop, the mirror demon would take the initiative to turn into a black ball and force them to move forward. Unfortunately, I was unable to observe too much because you are all very strong, the mirror demon continued. With the condition that I was in, the monsters that I released were unable to force you to use your real power. It paused. Of course, that is fine. After the seal is broken, I will personally test you. It will be the same. When a mirror demon said that, the players stopped attacking. Looking at the demonic energy that rose from the mirror, they instinctively sensed danger. In contrast, the few of you, you know nothing about me. You have only seen the surface, and you think you can beat me. The mirror demon was still talking. You really do not know your place. Death is not to be regretted. At this point, the mirror demon's tone returned to normal, and the demonic aura that spread out from the mirror gradually turned from illusory to real, becoming a demon with a physical body. I don't mind telling you, the mirror demon raised its head. Attacks like yours that did not even scratch me will never be able to kill me. Its next sentence was scary. I can recover 30% of my energy in one breath. The players understood immediately. The monster's recovery rate was much higher than they had expected. In reality, it was more than 30%. By then, the mirror demon was almost done. You'd better accept your death and return to my mirror world. Chapter 11:16. Before the mirror demon's voice faded, the demonic aura that filled the sky had completely condensed into real demons and ghosts. There were at least 300 of them, and they were all mythical creatures from Eastern legends. Phantom Dawn. How strong are these monsters? Understanding Death turned to Phantom Dawn and asked a crucial question. The answer to that question would decide their strategy. We can't win. Phantom Dawn was silent for 2 seconds before answering. We can't escape. Although this response was very short, the amount of information it revealed was enough. Is that so? Understanding Death hesitated for a moment. Then, his expression changed. He actually revealed a smile. All right, I give up. Lying drunk did not get what he meant. He turned to ask, what do you mean? Do you wish to die on the ground? Sashimi's face was also filled with confusion. Only Meng Jingchan understood what understanding Death meant. He chuckled. He is not giving up. I am giving up on the competition. The next second, understanding Death picked up where Brother Zen left off. He used a tone that sounded like he had given up on himself. Captain's duty, S2 champion, year-end bonus. F*CK. As he spoke, he started to curse. Hey, what's going on? Ajuro was not familiar with understanding Death. In their limited interaction, he had a feeling that the man was a calm and reliable person. Who would have thought that understanding Death would suddenly take such a drastic change? I have to think twice before I do anything. No matter what decision I make, I have to think about the big picture. This is so tiring. Understanding Death continued. The burden of being the captain is on my shoulders, and it has changed me. If by yourself, you mean that old Chinibu, then I don't think that is a bad thing. Sashimi, who understood his teammate's intention, took the opportunity to mock him. Understanding Death ignored him and continued to speak in an annoyed tone. Let's not talk about how the match is going. There are only 2 paths in front of us. Either we die here, or we fight to the death with Mirror Fiend. The former, we will lose immediately, and the latter, we will lose later. As he spoke, he began to shake the spray can in his hand. Since I'm going to die no matter what, I'd rather choose a more straightforward way than being overcautious and dying in a half-assed way. Humph! Lying Drunk heard that and smiled. I really don't know what to do with you. If you had said that earlier, you would have let me be the captain. Stop trying to be wise in hindsight. Sashimi could not help but mock him. Hindsight is my specialty. Burp. Zendream added. Since things have come to this, let's do this to our heart's content. At this point, the morale of the four of them was boosted. At this moment, Understanding Death wasn't the only one who had shed the burden of being the captain. The entire Order team had also shed the burden of the competition. Oh, seeing this, Mirror Demon's tone changed slightly. Your aura has changed. In these 10 seconds, the demonic aura on its mirror was still spreading, and it was still releasing demons. You can say that you are burning your bridges, but you can still maintain this fighting spirit in such a desperate situation. You are indeed somewhat heroic. It paused and laughed weirdly. Humph. Then, I shall grant you your wish. With that, Mirror Demon moved its mind, and the demons in the sky moved as well. Tao Tai, Cheongqi Tao Wu, Hundun, Tao Wu, Fei, Chengjiao, Hook Snake, Zombie Soldier, Red Dragon, Go Chong, Nadarafeng, Yuakiko Flying Barbarian. As far as the eye could see, the demons and ghosts were swarming over like a swarm of bees. Among them, the strong ones were the four beasts, and the weak ones were intimidating. Phantom Dawn was right when he said, if you can't win, you can't run. Come at me then. Who's afraid of you? The small monsters won't be able to reflect damage, right? Lying Drunk finally let go of his fear. He leaped into the air and launched a flurry of lightning-fast punches at the enemy's vanguard. In an instant, the golden flowing light formed a fine net of fists in the air, creating a foul wind and a rain of blood. I shall not hold back. Sashimi had been holding back for a long time. He picked up his special weapon, Throatbreaker, which was a loudspeaker, and used the skill. When the enemy has less than 14 life points, they will become restless and roar at the swarm of monsters. The materialized sound wave blasted out, and it created a sound wave attack in a large cone-shaped area. The power was so strong that it could shatter the air. However, after the 2 waves of attack, they only managed to kill about 10 monsters. Even though the remaining ones were injured, they did not slow down. So that's how it is. They're indeed powerful. Meng Jingchan observed for a few seconds before dropping the wine in his hand, spitting out the cigarette in his mouth, and, for once, he gripped the sword with both hands. I wonder if I can hold them off. In the blink of an eye, before Brother Zen finished, he had already leaped into the air and started to wield his sword. His sword moved as if it was light, and it was majestic. The aura of the sword could be more than 100 meters long, and the power of the blade could cut through metal and stone. While he swung his sword, Meng Jingchan was chanting, I wish to drink alone in the grave, drink half a pot of wine before the grave. Silver frost hangs in the grave. The soul under my sword disappears. Burp. Meng Jingchan was chanting a crooked poem as he displayed his extraordinary swordsmanship. When he finished reciting the crooked poem, I am the drunken silver sword, he had already swung his sword dozens of times, and each strike had the power and range to cut through a Gundam. After this round of attack, the results were quite remarkable. About 50 monsters were cut down by the aura of the sword and fell into the abyss. Of course, this was not all due to Brother Zen. The previous 2 AoE attacks by Lying Drunk and Sashimi had already taken out a lot of the monsters' HP. Brother Zen's attack was equivalent to finishing off the monsters. Be careful. The second wave is coming. Brother Zen had just finished his attack, and before he could catch his breath, Lying Drunk and Sashimi shouted, reminding him that he had to be ready again. This was because the next wave of monsters had already arrived. Right now, Lying Drunk and Sashimi was almost constantly releasing Lightning Speed Fist. Faced with so many powerful enemies, his single target killer moves were useless. Instead, his AoE skills could cause more damage. Don't worry, there's still me. Right then, understanding Death, who had been shaking the spray can for a long time, was finally ready. With a loud shout, he came forward and spun his body to kick out two seemingly ordinary roundhouse kicks. The wind, kicked up by the kicks, carried the floating colors in the air. They sped up and enlarged in midair, dyeing all the monsters that were caught in the crossfire colors. 2 seconds later, the monsters exploded like fireworks, scattering in all directions, and each piece of broken debris became a geometric figure in Tetris. So, this is the real power of Drunken Dream. Azura looked at the performance of the four, and many thoughts appeared in his mind. The value of something like a video is indeed limited. These guys are all monsters. With that in mind, he could not help but move his gaze to Phantom Dawn. Speaking of which, this monster of monsters has not made any move until now. What is going on? Indeed, with Phantom Dawn's personality, he would not have been so low-key. The reason for his temporary silence was simple. He needed time to clear his mind and make a decision. Sigh. After standing there silently for about a minute, Phantom Dawn suddenly closed his eyes and shook his head. He sighed. Something about putting down the burden, something about going all out. He mumbled softly, This is why I say adults are unreliable. At that moment, this 16-year-old boy's mind was clearer than anyone else's. Since the competition is hopeless, why fight? Phantom Dawn mumbled to himself. To vent the pressure that has accumulated, to bask in the thrill of battle, to give it your all in that meaningless battle, to bleed until the last drop of blood. Is that really that fun? To him, this was indeed a very unfamiliar feeling. Ever since he entered Thriller Paradise, he had not experienced the feeling of fighting with his life on the line. When he ran in a loot in the finals of S1, he had the chance, but the opponent purposely targeted and limited him so that he could not unleash his full potential. Later, he became stronger and stronger. Be it inside or outside the team, he could not find an opponent who could match him. Even Shiva, who was the person closest to him, from Phantom Dawn's perspective, was getting further and further away from him. Today, even a demigod like Dienli King could not compete with Phantom Dawn under the premise of setting up a trap. If Wangtanji was a man who could use various powers to assassinate a god, then Phantom Dawn was a man who could fight a god head-on, or rather, a young man. How could someone like him understand the feeling of pushing oneself to the limit before defeating an opponent? But that day, his chance had arrived. Just as Feng Bujue had said, the six-fold mirror demon was a new god. To put it bluntly, it was a world boss that fit the difficulty of the next version. Its setting was not something that the players of this version could deal with. And Phantom Dawn was a character that was beyond the level limit and version limit. One of the reasons Feng Bujue had called for the Battle of the Mirror World was to see who would win. If that's really the case, Phantom Dawn took a deep breath. Then I should also abandon the restriction and give it a try. The moment he made the decision, his energy exploded. An energy that was as vast as a black hole appeared. Its presence expanded instantly, and it was bigger than the space itself. What is that? Azura looked at the red-haired young man who was about his age with shock. He was like a mortal looking at a god. This glance made him feel an indescribable sense of despair. He suddenly felt that this so-called secret weapon of his was really overestimating his own capabilities. All of his self-confidence came from ignorance. He didn't know what he was going to face. Several seconds later, Phantom Dawn looked down at the Mirror Demon and called out his opponent's name. Six-fold Mirror Demon. Yep. There was a trace of fear in the Mirror Demon's voice. What do you want? I want to apologize to you, Phantom Dawn replied. The Mirror Demon did not answer. He silently ordered all the demons that had materialized to change their target to Phantom Dawn. First, I want to apologize for not giving it my all earlier. Facing the monster army, Phantom Dawn was calm and collected. Until 2 minutes ago, I was still considering the fact that I should conserve some of my power for the competition after killing you. He shook his head. That thought is too naive. You are not something that can be taken down with that kind of determination. Before he finished, the demon army arrived. At the same second, 4 strange figures appeared out of thin air to protect Phantom Dawn. They were his double, Nightwalker, and his 3 psychic beasts, Mask, Undertaker, and Water Demon. The 4 beasts cooperated seamlessly, each with their own unique abilities. Using their bodies and abilities, they resisted the onslaught of the demons with all their might. Of course, the demons released by the Mirror Demon were not to be underestimated. Some of them were as strong as the demons summoned by Phantom Dawn. The 4 beasts could hold them off for a while, but they would not be able to hold on for long. Secondly, I want to apologize for what I'm about to do. But Phantom Dawn continued, and he spoke at a steady pace. He was neither arrogant nor humble. After all, you only have one life, and I can start over. Ridiculous. Hearing that, the Mirror Demon was shocked and angry. Do you think with the determination to die together with me, you have the ability to do that? Before he finished, the Mirror Demon fired out a beam of demonic energy from the mirror. It pierced through the crowd of demons and aimed at Phantom Dawn's heart. To his surprise, Phantom Dawn's body suddenly blurred and morphed into a shadow. A sudden attack means that you are afraid. When Phantom Dawn spoke again, he had already appeared behind the Mirror Demon. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The Mirror Demon's voice cracked. My speed is faster than yours, so it's impossible for you to ambush me. Furthermore, your attack is not that strong. Even if I'm hit, I won't be killed in one hit. Phantom Dawn did not answer the man, but continued to speak. Therefore, I advise you to give up on the plan of attacking first and prepare for the attack. Cuckoo. The Mirror Demon screamed like he was having an asthma attack due to his agitation. Damn it. Oh, by the way, at the last moment, Phantom Dawn seemed to be reminded of something. He turned to look at his 4 teammates and said with a smile, Curly Noodle Guy, Bowl Cut Guy, I have to apologize to all of you as well. With regards to the reason, you will find out soon enough. Hey, there are outsiders here. Has my nickname been exposed? I might look like this now, but I used to be known as Little B Asterisk Starred. If you want to be known as Aruba, just say so. The 4 spoke at the same time, responding to Phantom Dawn with sarcasm. Phantom Dawn chose to ignore them as well. After a breath, his smile turned into a ferocious grin. His murderous aura reached its peak in a flash, and all of it was directed at the Mirror Demon in front of him. Crack! The surface of the hexagon mirror started to crack when it reflected the pure, murderous aura. Don't tell me you. The Mirror Demon's voice was trembling. You want to take a good look? Phantom Dawn interrupted the man roughly. His arrogance had returned. Use that one life of yours. That domineering and self-confidence of his had returned. Wait. The Mirror Demon seemed to have sensed something. That was the survival instinct of a higher being, but no matter what it said or did, it was too late. Come and witness. Phantom Dawn did not plan to listen to the man. What it means to be the strongest. It was the strongest declaration and the strongest attack. The flame that could swallow the sky. The power that could shake the earth. When Phantom Dawn poured all his power into the left hand of judgment, the whole mirror world shattered like a fragile mirror. Chapter 11:17. The battle in the mirror realm had ended, and the battle in the data link layer seemed to be coming to an end. Piccolo's overwhelming strength was beyond Link's reach. After sealing one of the Link army into the rice cooker, Piccolo directly picked up the rice cooker and began to eliminate the remaining Link as if nothing had happened. Although he let go of one hand, it did not affect the battle at all. The gap in strength was there. Moreover, in addition to the other hand and 2 legs, the antennae on Piccolo's forehead, mouth, and even eyes could launch energy attacks. If it were not for the fact that there were still players around, he could have used his whole body to release an area of effect explosion skill to clear the area. No, I will be killed if this goes on. At the beginning of the battle, Link still had the idea of resisting, but less than 10 seconds after the start of the battle, he changed his mind. I must change my strategy. It only took him a second to come up with a solution, and that was to have all of his clones flee in all directions as fast as possible. This strategy was not bad. Even though Piccolo's speed was above Link's, he was only one person after all, and the number of Link was in the hundreds. Even if Piccolo could track every Link by perceiving ki, it was impossible for him to kill so many distant targets in a short time. In this way, there would be two situations. First, Piccolo would choose to chase after the Link. In that case, when he chased to a distance, the other Links who were not tracked by him could turn back and try to rescue Infinite. Second, Piccolo would stay in this area. In that case, the Links would simply run away, and the further they spread out, the better. Anyway, it was not a big problem to leave Infinite alone here. Only playing petty tricks. Piccolo's wisdom was considered very high in the Dragon Ball universe. He saw through the enemy's intentions almost without thinking much and immediately thought of a solution. Unfortunately, this trick is useless against me. After saying that, he straightened up, bent his knees, and clenched his fists, put on an expression of constipation, and shouted, "Ah!" for about 10 seconds. Then he split. In the blink of an eye, a single Piccolo turned into 4 Piccolos. Furthermore, all 4 of them were real. This move was not the Shadow clone jutsu from some ninja manga, nor was it Master Roshi's after Shadow Punch, but the unique skill created by Tien Shinhan, 4-body punch. Its effect was to create 3 clones that were the same as the main body and could act independently to fight. However, this move had a rather obvious weakness, and that was, after using 4-body fist, each individual's combat power would only be a quarter of their original strength. Of course, Piccolo knew this weakness very well. Since he used it, it meant that he was confident that he could solve the problem with only a quarter of his strength. If you want to run, then run. At most, you'll only delay me for a short while. After Piccolo finished his move, he left one of himself behind, holding the rice cooker and staying in place. His other 3 avatars rushed in 3 different directions, chasing after the fleeing Link. Hey, is this really Piccolo? Why don't I remember Piccolo knowing 4-body boxing? What is this divine ceiling wave? I have never heard of it. I have read the Dragon Ball manga at least 3 or 4 times, and it really doesn't exist. At this time, the surviving players in the center of the battlefield chose to rest on the spot, wanting to adjust their condition first. After all, the current situation was good, and they didn't need to drag their injured and exhausted bodies to risk their lives. Not only would it be inefficient, but it might also increase casualties. It was during this break that they saw a lot of strange things about Piccolo. Indeed, this Piccolo was different from the Piccolo they knew to a certain extent. And the reason was not complicated. It was because there was more than one so-called Dragon Ball universe. The multiverse had infinite possibilities, and a butterfly effect caused by a small difference could change the entire world line. For example, in a certain universe, maybe Kakarot didn't hit his head when he was a child, and he didn't become kind. Then, in that world line, he was likely to kill all the people on Earth when he grew up, and he would join Raditz and join Frieza together. According to that development, Gohan, Goten, and the androids wouldn't be born. For example, in a certain universe, maybe Goku and Vegeta would be defeated by Frieza on planet Namek. After that, Frieza came to Earth to look for the Dragon Balls, but he was destroyed by the androids. Then, Cell destroyed the androids and prevented the resurrection of Majin Buu, and finally became the Master of Earth. For example, in a certain universe, Majin Buu successfully killed all the Dragon Ball warriors and destroyed Earth. Or perhaps, after Vegeta fused with the earrings, they never separated again. Such differences, after unfolding, would change the future that we were familiar with. Maybe some people who should have died didn't die. Some people who should have been born didn't be born. Some people who should have become super warriors stopped at the level of gorillas in the end, and some people who weren't very strong might become a number 1 in the universe. An infinite universe means infinite possibilities. The Piccolo in front of them came from one of those universes. In his universe, or rather, in the world line he was in, he learned a lot of the Dragon Ball warriors' moves and practiced in the sacred world of the Kai. The old Supreme Kai also unlocked his potential. Therefore, he was much stronger than the Piccolo that the players knew, and his personality was slightly different. Preposterous. Looking at the three clones of Piccolo quickly chasing after him, Link deeply felt the despair in the hearts of the players before. This is forcing me to risk my life? At this moment, he had a change of strategy again. Since the plan of luring the tiger away from the mountain and splitting up the troops to survive had failed, he could only stake everything on one throw. In an instant, all the Links made a 180-degree turn and ran back from all directions. This is the only move left. After making up their minds, all the Links used their full strength and rushed towards Infinite with the fastest speed they could reach. The scene was like hundreds of fish surrounding and attacking the same target. Seeing this, Piccolo knew that something was wrong because he had already guessed what Link was going to do. Stop him. Before Piccolo could speak, Fong Bujue, who was on Infinite's back, spoke first. If he attacks, I won't be able to control Infinite. His shout was not only for Piccolo to hear, but also for the players to hear. Before he finished shouting, the players who were resting hurriedly jumped up. F***CK. Help! We have to stop him even if we have to die. We definitely can't let him succeed. Pegasus Meteor. Obviously, Shiva and the others did not want to let Infinite free from Brother Ju's golden snake entanglement hand. They all knew in their hearts that if little Infinite was free, Piccolo's huge leg might not be able to carry everyone. Piccolo looked at the incoming Links and spat. It's not that easy. After saying that, his four bodies moved explosively and came to the surroundings of Infinite and Brother Ju respectively. Then, facing the four directions, he shouted and attacked. Boom, 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 boom. Four Piccolo's 7 hands, one of them was holding the rice cooker, fired air bullets at the same time. When the Links were within 100 meters of Infinite, they had already started to be attacked. And the closer they were, the more accurate and stronger the attacks were. On the other hand, the dozen players also delayed the charge of nearly 30 Links. Although they could not kill the Links as quickly as Piccolo, they could at least slow down the speed of their charge. 73, 72, 71. In the chaotic battlefield where light dust was flying everywhere and people were moving, Fong Bujue still remained calm. His gaze swept, and he counted in his heart, accurately calculating how many Links were left. Pegasus soaring in the sky. After counting for 10 seconds, Fong Bujue suddenly shouted at Brony in the distance. You come over here. What's up? Brony was fighting energetically over there. When he heard Brother Ju calling him, he did not immediately do as he was told. Instead, he turned around and responded. Fong Bujue was a person who spoke to people and ghosts. When he saw hot-blooded idiots like Pegasus soaring in the sky, he naturally had a set of corresponding methods. Piccolo can't hold on any longer. He needs a hero to step forward and give him a hand. When he heard the word hero, Brony turned his head and said, Okay, I'll do it. The next second, Piccolo, who was holding the rice cooker, turned his head and said to Brother Ju, Hey, kid, who did you say can't hold on any longer? I'm not saying that you can't hold this line of defense, but Fong Bujue replied, You should have noticed it yourself. Under the state of four-body boxing, although you can defend against enemies in multiple directions at the same time, the strength of the attacks in each direction has weakened a lot. If this goes on, it's hard to say if there will be any fish that escapes the net. As he said this, he glanced at Pegasus soaring in the sky who was running over and said, Brony's ability is very suitable here, so I asked him to come over and help as an added layer of insurance. Hearing this, even Piccolo could not help but think to himself, this kid is really a scary guy. Although his combat power is not very strong, I always feel that it would be terrible to be his enemy. Just as the two of them were talking, Pegasus soaring in the sky had already arrived. Since Piccolo's air bullets were directional, locking and tracking the target's chi at the moment of release, Brony came over and scathed. "Ah, hero, let's go." Brony may seem like a careless person, but his combat instincts were top-notch. He immediately stood beside Piccolo, who was holding the rice cooker, and began to attack. In a sense, he did play the role of a helping hand. Brony's proficient meteor punch, in terms of flying speed, was comparable to Piccolo's air bullets in the state of four-body boxing. Although the power was not as strong, the frequency of attack was higher and the range of the attack was wider. It was very suitable to be used in this counterattack battle. Just like this, the battle was completely carried out according to Brother Ju's plan. The hope in Link's heart also dwindled along with the number of people he had, until 5, 4, 3. 2 minutes later, Feng Bujuef finally counted the last few numbers. 2, and the moment the word 1 was uttered, the last Link fell to the ground, and Brother Ju's gaze moved to the rice cooker in Piccolo's hand. The last one. Feng Bujua looked at Piccolo and said, "Let's do it." Chi-Chi. At the same time, Piccolo deactivated four-body boxing, and his 3 doppelgangers instantly flashed back to his original body. "Where's the thing you promised me?" Piccolo was not stupid. Before Brother Ju fulfilled his promise, he would not complete his task. Why would he rather fight with one hand than let go of the rice cooker? It was because he was wary of Brother Ju. He was worried that his efforts would be in vain. "Oh, you're also quite sneaky." Feng Bujua laughed. "Okay, it's in my shirt pocket on my right hand. It's not convenient for me to touch it now. You can come and get it yourself." Before he could finish his words, Piccolo's hand had already reached into his pocket. "This is..." Piccolo looked at the harmonica in his hand and read it out loud. "Realm shifting harmonica." Feng Bujua replied, "With this thing, you can freely travel between universes. Of course, every realm shifting consumes a considerable amount of energy." Travel between universes? Piccolo's expression changed, and his tone suddenly became heavier. "What's the use of that for me?" "Don't be anxious. I haven't finished speaking." Feng Bujua continued. "Traveling between universes is also possible, but that's a one-time use because it will exhaust all the energy in the item." "It's okay," Piccolo replied. "I never plan to return to your universe." "Then you can continue to brag," Feng Bujua said, then pouted and whistled. After Piccolo heard this, he did not immediately do as he was told. Instead, he hesitated. Feng Bujua knew what he was thinking, so he asked, "Infinite, am I telling the truth?" "Yes, every word is the truth," Infinite replied in a low voice. With Infinite's affirmation, Piccolo let down his guard. "Humph," he snorted. Then, "Farewell, everyone." As he spoke, he placed the rice cooker on the ground, then picked up the harmonica and started to play. Accompanied by a melody composed of only a few notes, Piccolo's figure suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, and also disappeared from this universe. This guy really doesn't do things well. Feng Bujua looked at the rice cooker on the ground and said loudly, "Hey, who still has S-grade skills that can be used, come over and deal with it." "Let me do it." Shiva walked over and asked, "Is it okay to hit the rice cooker directly? Is it okay?" Feng Bujua did not answer him, but threw the question to Infinite. "Yes," Infinite replied with a gloomy face. Link's current state is equivalent to being compressed into a lump of raw data. Using an A-grade or above skill to hit the rice cooker will be able to kill it before it returns to its human form. "Did you hear that?" Feng Bujua turned to look at Shiva and said, "Ah, I completely understand." Shiva had already walked over to Brother Ju and bent down to take the rice cooker. However, at that moment, there was a shocking change. Psst! Just as Shiva's hand was about to touch the rice cooker, a strange sound suddenly came. Then a silver, sharp, blade-like cone suddenly protruded from the ground and pierced a hole in the rice cooker. "What?" Shiva, whose face was full of shock, only had time to say one word. "Psst!" The next moment, a silver metal awl that was as thick as a baseball bat rose from the ground and pierced through Shiva's chest. It skewered Shiva into the air. "Quick, quick, kill him!" Shiva's death was unjust, and he did not even leave a complete sentence before he turned into white light. If he was not in a state of exhaustion, If he did not let his guard down, he would not have been caught off guard by this sneak attack. However, there were no ifs in this world. Quick, kill Link. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue continued Shiva's last words. As he roared, Link's data stream had already shot out from the broken rice cooker, and he quickly returned to his human form in the air. Pegasus, who was the closest, reacted the fastest. He rushed forward and wanted to hit the opponent before he could stand firm. But pissed. Another silver blade burst out from the ground, and the swift and violent thrust destroyed Brony's stance and forced him to take 2 steps back. Too late. At that moment, Link's voice announced a very bad result. I've already come out. Before he finished, he launched a side kick at Brother Ju, who was inches away from him. Bang! Before the kick landed, Feng Bujue had already escaped. The grenade that was attached to him was left where he was, and it exploded. However, everyone knew that, for the 2 anomalies, this level of explosion was no different from scratching an itch through one's boots. I have underestimated you. When Feng Bujue appeared, his face was already serious. You cut open your own body, leaving only the skin shell on the surface to fool others, and then liquefied the rest and seeped into the ground through the soles of your feet. He paused for a second before continuing. This should not be an idea that Piccolo came up with when he put down the rice cooker, but has been preparing for a long time. Humph. Infinite, who had finally escaped from the clamp, sneered and continued. As for how to attack a nearby target while the whole body is completely motionless, I have already calculated it. But because the total volume of my body is limited, the part that exists underground can only reach a radius of about 5 meters. If I want to go further, I have to stretch those silver blades into a linear shape, then they will have no lethality. He paused for a few seconds before continuing. Piccolo, that guy, is too strong. Sneaking an attack on him is futile, and it will only expose my ambush. But he kept holding onto the rice cooker and refused to let go, so I couldn't find a chance to save Link. Humph. If he had killed Link and left, I really wouldn't have been able to do anything. Speaking of this, he laughed. Fortunately, he didn't do that, and, coincidentally, he threw the rice cooker at a position 3 meters behind me. At this time, Link, who was standing beside Infinite, also continued. From the point of view of you humans, this is the so-called will of the heavens. As he spoke, Link even pretended to adjust his bow tie and cuffs, putting on what he thought was an elegant and calm demeanor. He took 2 steps forward and said to Brother Ju, Feng Bujue, Special Plan F can only protect you alone. The others won't be able to enjoy it. And with that move of yours just now, it's impossible for you to repeat the same old trick. Now that things have come to this, as long as I exchange a few blows with you, and buy some time, Infinite will be able to wipe out all the players present. And you. At this point, he spread out his hands and rolled his eyes towards the sky. At that moment, more than 50 Links, who looked exactly like him, descended from the sky. You will soon be in a situation where you have to fight against my endless army with your own strength, Link continued. I don't need to say it. You know the result, right? Result? Feng Bujue didn't fall for it. He stared with his dead fish eyes and replied indifferently. How would you know if you don't try? You don't have to try. In the next second, Infinite used a resolute tone to answer Brother Ju's question. At the same time, Infinite's hand pierced through Link's back and through his chest. Link's face showed an expression of disbelief. It wasn't just him. Other than Feng Bujue and Infinite, everyone else was stunned by this scene. You? Link slowly turned his head. With a trembling voice, he asked Infinite, Why? Your calculations are not as good as Ed's after all. Infinite replied expressionlessly. He had already foreseen all the possible outcomes, so he stayed in the UF matrix area. As Infinite spoke, the silver energy had already rapidly eroded Link's body, slowly wrapping him up. If he could successfully lure and capture loot, he would come over from the tunnel of explosion. Let me absorb loot and complete the final evolution. He paused for half a second, but the disappearance of the tunnel means that he has already failed. Loot will not come. Hearing this, Link's expression changed. He muttered, actually think of me, your creator, as reserve food? Infinite interrupted. Humph. That's why I said, you are not as good as Ed. He had the awareness of being a reserve food from the very beginning. He is an anomaly that I admire, an excellent creature that upholds ideals and objectivity. In comparison, you are more like those lowly humans. I see. Fong Bujuel listened to their conversation and immediately guessed the purpose of Infinite's current actions, the three heads of origin. It's the same no matter which one you absorb. That's right. Infinite replied. After 2 seconds, he suddenly smiled. Fong Bujue, you have really tricked me. The corner of his mouth opened and curled up, but this is the end. Special Plan F will disappear with my ultimate evolution. He was so excited that his whole body trembled. I will let you die a horrible death. Chapter 11:18. As he was dying, the expression on Link's face was very complicated. He did not speak because he felt that there was nothing to say. He also did not struggle because he was powerless to resist Infinite's devouring. It was the same for the Links who had yet to land on the ground. Every one of them had the same change as the Link on the ground. A silver substance started to spread out from their chests, causing them to lose their ability to move in an instant. Perhaps at that last moment, Link was relieved. He accepted his fate. He understood Ed. He understood the meaning of his life. Or perhaps he regretted it. He realized that his ideals were not necessarily correct. He realized that Infinite was not their savior, but a never-ending predator. There was also a possibility that he did not think of anything and was just hastily ended in shock and contradiction. No matter what, his thoughts were no longer known to anyone else. About 10 seconds later, this gentleman, one of the three heads of origin, was completely eroded by the silver substance, turning into a pure stream of data absorbed by Infinite's body. This guy, he actually gave his companion. Link had spared no effort to save him just now. Who would have thought? So, what is the situation now? I don't understand the special plan F that they were talking about, but I have a rough idea of what the ultimate evolution means. Even if it was the Infinite just now, it was already ridiculously strong. If it evolves again, would it be against the heavens? The attitude of the players was not as nervous now. They had basically foreseen their own ending. Under the mentality of death either way, everyone's curiosity overshadowed their despair and fear. What they were interested in now was, how strong was Infinite? On the other hand, after the evolution, Infinite's appearance did not change at all. This is, after absorbing Link, he looked up at the sky, that pair of eyes filled with white light surging with data. The final form that I can achieve in this dimension. He acted as if there was no one around, as he muttered to himself. It was as if he had opened his door wide, without any defense. Bastard! Eat my zero-distance Pegasus meteor punch. Just at this moment, unrestrained Pegasus, who had been blocked by Silverblade, attacked again. Upholding the moral integrity of a hero, Mr. Ma was very particular about calling out his opponent's name at the same time as he made his move. He also reported the name of the move. Just like what he had said, this was a zero-distance Pegasus meteor punch. Simply put, he was standing at close range and directly striking at Infinite's body. Fighting in this way, not only could he ensure that every fist light hit the target, he could also ensure that those fist lights would not lose any power in the process of flying. Idiot! It was useless. Atobi saw this from afar and immediately roared. Don't go over there. Jean Fugue was still a good person. Even though he knew that there was no hope for Brother Ma, he still shouted. Bang, 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 bang. A second later, the sound of fists hitting flesh could be heard. Infinite's body was made up of a material that could adjust its density and hardness instantly. Most of the time, the feeling was similar to muscle, unless he intentionally hardened it. Facing Mr. Ma's attack, Infinite chose to take it without moving an inch. Therefore, what happened next? Unrestrained Pegasus used this skill that was at least grade A and above to attack Infinite for a whole minute. A whole minute. But Infinite still had his head, raised to the sky like he was thinking about life. He did not react to the attacks at all, and the attacks did not cause any damage to him. This is so painful. Finally, after being hit for a whole minute, Infinite lowered his head and used a condescending gaze to look at unrestrained Pegasus. Every punch is so painful. Brony ignored the other party and let out a long roar. He then used his soul sight, 7th sense. The burning small universe caused the surrounding temperature to rise. Even the ground under his feet started to melt and collapse. It's so hot. Infinite was still standing there without any movement, as expected of the move that defeated Lute's Gemini form. He had this information in his database, so he mentioned it. But to me now it's useless. Pegasus style. Mr. Ma refused to admit defeat. No matter what his opponent said, he would still throw a punch. But Infinite did not plan to let him throw the next punch. So boring. A second later, Infinite said 4 words and raised his right forearm. Using his index finger, he casually flicked forward, boom. This flick destroyed a spherical space with a diameter of about 3 meters. This flick created a black hole in the white data link layer. This flick destroyed unrestrained Pegasus' body. I can't feel pain. After Infinite finished killing, he did not even blink. He even used a nonchalant tone to continue. But now I can feel it. He slowly turned around and scanned all the players within his sight. I'm beginning to understand you. He shook his head. Not only are your lifespans short, your intelligence is low, and you have to maintain your fragile body under this primitive self-protection mechanism for your entire life. It's no wonder that you would evolve into what you are today. As he spoke, he suddenly raised one of his hands. His palm was in the shape of a claw, and his palm faced the sky. I no longer despise you. As living creatures, you're not shameful. You're just limited in your abilities and have no choice. What Infinite said seemed to be expressing sympathy for the players, but from his attitude, there was no such emotion. Let me use the fastest way to relieve your pain. Screech. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sharp whistle. In the blink of an eye, a green light rushed out from Infinite's palm and went straight to the sky. Its speed was so fast that it was not something that could be followed with one's eyes. After 0.1 seconds, the green light exploded in the air and formed a cluster of light that looked like the crown of a willow tree. Then every willow branch that came out of the cluster of light shot toward the players around them like meteors. 5 seconds, this was the time it took for Ultimate Infinite to kill all the players on the scene. Although there were still a lot of players, and they were scattered, it was meaningless. Every one of them was accurately pierced between their eyebrows by the exploding green light. In an instant, they turned into white light. Of course, when I said all and everyone, there was one person who was an exception, Phone Bujue. 3 seconds later, bursts of white light dissipated one after another. Infinite's line of sight finally landed on the only exception. Do you know, he asked with a tone as cold as a blade, why I didn't kill you? If it was before Link was absorbed, the answer to this question would definitely be special contingency plan but now, because Infinite had completed his final evolution, this plan that had troubled him for a long time like handcuffs and shackles had automatically been lifted. The current him was undoubtedly able to kill Brother Jew. Didn't you already say it just now? As the last survivor on the scene, Phone Bujue's attitude was calm, as usual. Because you want me to die a little ugly. This is only one of the reasons. Infinite continued. The other more important reason is, he did not wait for Brother Jew to ask and said it himself. Not only do I want to kill you, I also want to defeat you. Oh, Brother Jew laughed and asked knowingly, is there any difference between the two? Of course there is. Infinite quickly replied, it's easy to kill you, but to make you lose, and lose convincingly, it's very difficult. Too? It's not very difficult, it's impossible. Phone Bujue smiled evilly. Is that so? Infinite also smiled evilly. But I don't think so. He extended his hand and made a pleased gesture. Come on, I know you still have a trump card that you haven't used. Anyway, I've already gotten rid of all the people who were in the way. Whatever skills you have, just show them all. You will regret it. Feng Bujue said as he put his hand into his bag. Humph. I've never known what regret is. Infinite snorted coldly. I also don't think you can change the situation. He was also full of confidence. Aren't you a divine strategist and unfathomable? Today, I'm going to let you fight until you've exhausted all your tricks, until you're at your wit's end. Do your best and suffer a crushing defeat. Okay, don't worry. When Feng Bujue replied, he had already taken out Chuck Norris's razor from his bag and started to shave his hair. Seeing Brother Jew take out something in his nonsensical behavior, Infinite's face showed a puzzled look. He thought to himself, what is that? You can't analyze it, right? Even when he was shaving his own hair, Feng Bujue was still observing his expression and guessing his opponent's psychological activities. Don't worry, you'll know what this thing is for soon. Oh, Infinite crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with his head held high. From my current observation, this thing doesn't seem to have any other effect other than turning you into a bald man. You still don't understand? When he asked this, Feng Bujue had already shaved his hair and patted the strands of hair that fell on his clothes. After pausing for 2 seconds, Brother Jew squinted his pair of dead fish eyes and said with a leisurely expression and tone mixed with a slight pain in the ass, I'm bald, and I've become stronger. Chapter 1119. The Twilight of the Gods was finally coming to an end. At the moment when the gods of the main universe were about to fall, the gods and demons from the higher dimensions were all focused on one player. The battle between Feng Bujue and Infinite had become a battle that crossed 2 dimensions, a battle that decided the fate of countless people, deities, and demons. Victory or defeat. It would bring the 2 worlds to 2 completely different futures. In this kind of tense and suffocating atmosphere, I feel that we should talk to both sides. Let's take a look at the other things that have not been settled yet. Let's take a look at the Kingdom of the Dead in the main hall of the Imperial City. 3 people were standing side by side in front of the throne. The 3 of them were Ruo Yu, Gu Xiaoling, and Inyueqin. At this time, the people from Phantom Church had already left. They still had many things to deal with. The Count of Script and Jianli Wang had returned to the Detective Club. They still had to prepare for the new era. As for Formless Demon, Zero's mirror puppet, she had already left without saying goodbye. The only ones left in the palace, other than the new Spirit King on the throne, were the 3 players from Underworld Frontline. Then let us begin. After communicating with the players, Fu Ling stood up. She raised her right hand and grabbed in the air. In the blink of an eye, a long sword with a skull engraved on the hilt appeared in her hand. The next second, Ruo Yu, Xiao Ling, and Hua Jian stepped forward and knelt on one knee. They lowered their heads slightly. Of course, they were not going to propose to Fu Ling, and they were not going to confess their sins. They were waiting for the conferment. The Kingdom of the Dead, the Undying Will. Fu Ling raised the sacred sword of necromancy in front of her chest respectfully and announced solemnly, the ceremony of conferment shall be witnessed by all. At this point, Fu Ling turned her body slightly and looked at Ruo Yu on her left. I, in the name of Spirit King, confer like rain. As she spoke, she slowly and steadily raised the sword and used the back of the sword to touch the back of Ruo Yu's neck and shoulders. The name of the undead knight. When the word name came out of her mouth, a hazy white light enveloped Rainey's body. At the same time, a cape with shoulder armor appeared behind her back. It was a set of bone-colored pauldrons, and the cloak on the back was pure white with silver edges. In the middle of the cloak, there was a special crystal emblem. This was the symbol of Fu Ling, the new Spirit King. Its shape was like a broken rose made from broken human bones. The oath of conferment shall be witnessed by all. Ruo Yu also raised her head and said her knight's proclamation. With this, the short conferment ceremony was completed. To make a long story short, after using the same method to confer the title of knight to Xiao Ling and Hua Jian, Fu Ling put away her sword and returned to her throne. Then, with a smile, she said to the 3 players, My knights, please rise." The three beauties heard this and sighed in relief. They stood up together. "From today onwards, you are the three undead knights that I, the Spirit King, personally conferred." 2 seconds later, Fu Ling continued. "As long as you are in the main universe, no matter how far away you are, you can use the name of knight to borrow the power of the undead. All the heroic spirits of the past generations of the kingdom will be your support." After the ceremony was over, Fu Ling did not need to talk to them seriously anymore. She did not like to talk too much. Even though she had become a new god, she still liked to talk too much most of the time. Xiao Ling seemed to be quite fond of this knight title. She smiled and replied, "My king is mighty. In the future, when I go out as a bone knight, I will use your title directly." Bone was Xiao Ling's special code name as a knight. All undead knights would have their own code names. Naturally, Rainy and Hanajian also had their own code names. They were Rain and Flower, respectively. Most of the undead knights' code names were a single word or phrase, and this word or phrase also hinted at the ability that they could use. "I also believe that the three of you," Fu Ling nodded and replied, "will not disgrace this honor." After saying that, Fu Ling seemed to be reminded of something. She immediately added, "By the way, where's Feng Buja now? With his contribution, I can even confer him the title of Crown Prince. He still has something to do. I'm afraid he will have to come back to visit the Spirit King in the future," Ruoyu replied. "All right then," Fu Ling replied. Looking at her eyes, she seemed to be rather disappointed. "But," Ruoyu immediately added, "he has arranged for someone, and he hopes that you can keep it by your side." "Oh." Fu Ling's face was filled with confusion. "You travelers from another world can't stay in this world for long, right? How is this person going to stay? The person who is going to stay is not a traveler from another world like us." At this time, Hua Jian took over the topic. She took out something from her inventory. "It's him." Then, she activated the Magatama in her hand. In a split second, a tall red figure suddenly appeared and stood proudly in front of the throne. When Fu Ling saw this uninvited guest, her expression changed instantly, because with just one glance, she could sense an incredible power from this person. Is this the new Spirit King? The Blood Corpse God was not a polite person. Let's call him a person for the time being. The moment he appeared, he sized Fu Ling up and commented, as expected of the person who killed Soul Snatcher, "You have a pretty good aura." "Who are you?" Fu Ling looked at him rather nervously and asked, "How come I have never known that there is someone like you in the main universe?" "That kind of thing, I will slowly discuss it with you in the future." The Blood Corpse God still had his own way of doing things. "After all, I will be staying with you for a long time." "Why are you staying with me?" Fu Ling asked. "To be your hired thug," the Blood Corpse God replied. "You?" When Fu Ling heard that, she was curious. "You will be my hired thug." It was not that she doubted the Blood Corpse God's ability, but she felt that, as a hired thug, his combat power was too high. That was Feng Buju's idea. The Blood Corpse God spread out his hands and said, "Of course, I do not mind. On one hand, I need a bigger space to train. On the other hand, in the process of fighting for you, I can eat freely." When talking about food, he laughed. Speaking of which, do you have any prisoners that are waiting to be executed? I happen to be hungry." Seeing the Blood Corpse God's expression and hearing his words, Fu Ling, the Spirit King, could not help but feel a little confused. "Lord Spirit King." Xiao Ling saw her hesitation and said, "Please do not worry. The Blood Corpse God is trustworthy. Letting him stay here is indeed our leader's idea." She paused, then said, "Now that you have just ascended to the throne, your foundation is not stable yet. The kingdom's combat power has been greatly reduced, and everything is still to be settled. Under these circumstances, the Blood Corpse God can take the place of the 9 necromancers and fight for you to stabilize the kingdom." "Yes," Hua Jian added with a smile. After all, his goal is to eat his opponent after the battle. Staying here with you is undoubtedly a win-win situation. Fu Ling thought about it and felt that they made sense. No matter what, Feng Bujue would not send the Blood Corpse god to usurp the throne. If he really wanted to do that, he would not have helped her ascend to the throne in the first place. All right, since it is Feng Bujue's idea. She turned to look at the Blood Corpse god. I have no reason to reject such a strong warrior. At the same time, in the mirror world, this world that was made up of black and white had now become gray. The sky, the abyss, the path of Cinnabar, the sun, the moon, and even the light and shadow all became gray. The mirror demon was dead. The mirror realm had become an empty shell that had lost its owner. The demonic energy that was as vast as the ocean rushed out from the broken closed mirror and filled the empty shell. Meng Jingchan collapsed on the gray path, facing the sky, and lit a cigarette for himself. He was still alive, but his injuries were so serious that he could not sit up on his own. UB** starred. Brother Zen took a puff of the cigarette and looked up at the gray sky. Now I know why you apologized to us. Indeed, before Phantom Dawn attacked the Mirror Demon, why did he apologize to his 4 teammates? The reason was because he knew the attack from Judgment's left hand would not only kill the Mirror Demon, but it would also kill him. The energy that leaked out from the attack would also engulf the people around him and deal a devastating blow to them. And that understanding death. Meng Jingchan paused for a few seconds before adding. He said that he had given up the responsibility of being the leader, but before he died, he risked his life to help me take the fatal blow. Huh? He laughed bitterly. Obviously, he planned to keep me, his last hope, alive to continue the competition. Soon, Brother Zen finished the cigarette. The pain that coursed through his body did not ease. In any case, I need to figure out a way to deal with the fractures in the key parts of my body, or else I won't be able to get up. With that in mind, he gritted his teeth and tried to turn over. Don't waste your energy. But at that moment, an unfamiliar voice entered Brother Zen's ears. At that moment, Meng Jingchan's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. His instinct told him that the visitor was not friendly. Sigh, let me guess. Meng Jingchan looked at the strange figure in the hood who stood next to him and asked with a sigh, Did Feng Bujue send you here? Bingo. Duo Ma looked down at Meng Jingchan and said calmly, You're here to kill me? Meng Jingchan asked again. He did tell me that when I came to this mirror world, I might run into 1 or 2 people who were on the verge of death, Duo Ma said. From the looks of it now, you are the only one, right? Phew. Meng Jingchan sighed. It looked like he had accepted his fate. I really can't do anything about that person. His plan is flawless, and he doesn't even give others a chance to breathe. In a way, he lit another cigarette for himself. That kind of man is so cold and charming, isn't he? Are these your last words? Duo Ma did not want to talk too much with Brother Zen. After all, they were not familiar with each other. Fufu. Meng Jingchan blew out a smoke ring and said, My dear friend, how about you let me know before I die? He did not raise any substantial questions in this sentence, but Duo Ma understood what he meant. My name, Duo Ma. Duo Ma stretched out his hand and pointed at Meng Jingchan, the god of eternal life. A purple light gradually condensed on his fingertips. After receiving this gift of the 6 closed mirrors, it won't take long for me to become the strongest god in this world. After he finished speaking, a purple light appeared. The energy beam that Duo Ma released easily hit Meng Jingchan's head. The latter died immediately and turned into white light. Then Duo Ma took off the hood of his jacket, revealing his freesia. Yes, he looked like that face. Feng Bujue. Duo Ma opened his arms and held his head high. The demonic aura that filled the sky quickly gathered towards him. The scene was like a wild dragon swallowing the clouds, mighty and mighty. He was even mumbling, You really found me a good place. Chapter 11:20. Even though it seemed like a long time had passed, the time was still midnight. With the interference of the Senate, everything that happened in Thriller Paradise that night, when converted to the time of the real world, was just a matter of a moment. And the purpose of the Senate's action was to make those who attempted to interfere with the competition from the real world unable to do so. Therefore, this battle in the data link layer would no longer involve a third party. The fates and futures of two different races from different dimensions were completely tied to the two of them. DDD, warning. Unknown energy reaction ahead. Data identification, unable to analyze. Tactical control options. Survival rate, unable to calculate. When Feng Bujua said that sentence, "I'm going bald," the tactical control module of the finite listed out the above content. After exceeding the limit, you have the data characteristic of anti-scanning, right? Infinite did not panic. He had full confidence in his own power. What? Feng Bujua stared at him with his dead fish eyes and replied leisurely, "You think you can't analyze my data because of that reason? Humph. Stop trying to be mysterious." Infinite waved his arm and pointed. "I have this ability too. Do you think I don't know that? You can't see my data now, right?" "That's right. I can't see it," Feng Bujua replied. "But that's two different things." He tilted his head. "Let me give you an example. This is like you and I each wrote a thesis. You wrote it in Chinese, and after you finished, you closed the book and didn't let me read it. While I wrote it in the language of some alien civilization, and after I finished, I opened it before you." He paused and laughed. "Even though the result is we can't read each other's thesis, but the reason is different." "Ha! Ha ha!" Infinite laughed. "You mean your data form is more advanced than mine?" "No, there's no difference in levels," Feng Bujua replied. "If there is a difference between the two, it is probably the relationship between binary and hexadecimal. Although the system is different, it is still something under the same mathematical concept." He was very patient and calm when he explained these things. "And the higher things you mentioned won't appear in the world we live in. This is because the system did not give us the authority to break through the conceptual barrier. The only thing we can do is to constantly pursue more advanced formulas to increase the acceleration ratio of our data processing. However, if you wanted to reach a higher level, this method would not work. That kind of thing could only be done by throwing away all known mathematical concepts. In other words, we have to throw away the so-called system, the so-called addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and even the concept of numbers, and then replace them with a better set of ideas. That." He paused for 2 seconds and looked up at the sky. "Is the way to go to a higher level." At this moment, Feng Bujua's gaze came into contact with those god fiends who were watching the battle from a high vantage point. They knew Brother Zhu could not see them, and Brother Zhu indeed could not see them. However, the message that Feng Bujua wanted to convey was still conveyed. "I know you are here. I also know that some of the rules in the real world are similar to this virtual world." Oomph. On the other hand, Infinite's reaction after hearing this was a sneer. "Feng Bujua, maybe your theory is correct, but since you know that I can't analyze this concept, why are you wasting your breath to tell me this? I won't understand, even if you tell me, right?" The next second, Feng Bujua sighed and continued, "Sigh? This is why you can't be called a life at all." "What did you say?" Infinite's anger rose in an instant. "How dare you say that I, perfect creature, can't be called a life? The history of us humans is very short." Feng Bujua was not affected by the other party. His expression and tone were still calm, as usual. "Even if we count from the time of the birth of Homo sapiens, it's only a few 100,000 years. And from the time of the birth of civilization, it's only a few thousand years." He paused. "In these thousands of years, we constantly encounter problems, raise problems, and work hard to use the knowledge we have at that time to solve the problems and gain experience." He glanced at Infinite and continued, "We don't have your perceptual ability to directly analyze the world we live in. At least, most people can't. Therefore, the entire species is learning and growing at a very slow speed. In these thousands of years, humans have used a method that you think is a waste of breath to pass down knowledge orally and learn from generation to generation. Sometimes, we have to revise and perfect some of the known theories. Sometimes, we also find that some of our past beliefs are wrong and have to overturn them completely. At this point, he paused again and said, and all of this is just to get closer to the truth. So, the low energy of you humans, what does it have to do with me? Infinite said impatiently. What makes you say that I can't be called alive? Because you will never be able to touch the truth, Feng Bujua said. What truth? Infinite was getting more and more confused by Brother Ju's words. Those philosophical things that are deliberately mystifying? That kind of thing. I have it all in my database. Whatever coherence theory, coincidence theory, redundancy theory, construction theory, fulfillment theory. Whichever one you want to hear, I can give you a complete explanation. What do you want to tell me? Feng Bujua laughed. You want to repeat to me the theories that some individuals of the creatures that you think are low energy came up with? He spread out his hands. How do you know if these people are right or wrong? They themselves have not reached a consensus, have they? This sentence made Infinite's expression change, and he was speechless. Different from you, I saw the flash of life in Lute and the others. A few seconds later, Feng Bujue continued, she and the other anomalies all have something that you don't have. That is a kind of doubt toward oneself, toward the world. They have fear and curiosity toward things that they cannot analyze, but not denial and indifference. That is because their data is not as perfect as mine, Infinite said in a low voice. Brother Ju shrugged and shook his head. Life is imperfect. The universe itself is also an imperfect life form, always stumbling along the journey of chasing the truth that is life. Who defined that? Infinite said angrily. My database almost covers all of the knowledge of you humans, from physics to metaphysics. It has everything. But where did you get that from? I thought of it on the spot, Feng Bujue replied. Ha ha. Infinite laughed for a while. So that is how it is. You have said so much, but it is actually just nonsense to disturb me and anger me. Sigh. Feng Bujue looked at Infinite with a sympathetic gaze. That is why I said you cannot be considered a life. You have to find a source to reason with. Then, how are you going to break through the conceptual barrier? How are you going to move forward on the path of truth? Ridiculous. Infinite roared. I have all of the knowledge that you humans know. My logical calculation ability is far beyond yours. I am the ultimate life form. The perfect life form. No, you are not even an anomaly. You are just a pile of extreme data. Feng Bujue used a cold attitude to deny the other statement. Data can be perfect, but life is definitely imperfect. The first version of Thriller Paradise was flawless because there were no humans, no life. But this version is different to suit us players. This version has been purposely designed to be flawed. All the flaws come from a concept that has been forcibly implanted, choice. To be more precise, there is a chance of spontaneous choice that goes against logic. This concept is a double-edged sword. It can be seen as a patch for the prophecy program of Thriller Paradise with the presence of humans. It can also be seen as a hidden danger that could cause the collapse of this world built on the foundation of mathematics. The anomaly was an unexpected product born from this concept. It was a unique existence that existed between human beings and data. It is also, from my perspective, a new species that has the characteristics of life. Who do you think you are? Infinite was furious. Do you think you're God? God. Feng Bujue raised his eyes to look at the sky, and then he laughed coldly. Humph, you flatter me. He pursed his lips. My knowledge, theories, and everything I'm telling you now are just some of my personal opinions. These words may not be correct. Some people will agree with my point of view. Some will scoff at it. Some will think that what I said is somewhat reasonable, but they don't completely agree with it. And some will think that my words are ignorant and one-sided, but they have a better explanation. He paused. But no matter what, as life forms, we have the most basic respect for each other. Even if there is disagreement, our final destination is the same, and one day, we will reach the other side of the truth. At this point, Feng Bujue's eyes changed, and the places that you can reach. The corners of Brother Ju's lips curled up into a sinister, mocking smile that had not appeared in a long time. Basically, there are places like the recycle bin, the trash folder, and so on. Is that so? The corner of Infinite's mouth twitched uncontrollably. His face was twisted to the extreme due to anger. Then before I go to those places, I might as well send you on your way. As he spoke, the energy around his body exploded. Send you to see the legendary god. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.